Hello there, and welcome once again to the Science for Sleep. Tonight, we're going to drift into the ever-changing world of weather, the endless dance of sky and storm that surrounds us every single day. The sky above our heads may seem simple, but it is full of chaos and wonder. It is a living ocean of air, rippling with winds, painted with clouds, and stirred by invisible rivers of heat. Within this fragile yet resilient system, sunlight scatters into colors, lightning splits the sky with fire, and storms are born that can cross entire oceans. Weather is not merely the mood of our planet, it is its breath, its heartbeat, its song, the rhythm by which the earth speaks to itself. So take a deep breath, settle in, and allow your mind to wander through this gentle exploration of the forces that move the air, shape the clouds, and guide the rain. A single storm cloud can weigh more than 1,000,000 elephants. It seems impossible that something so soft and white could be so heavy, but a single cumulus cloud floating above a summer field may hold hundreds of thousands of tons of water. Each droplet within it is smaller than a strand of hair, yet together they form a drifting mountain of moisture, suspended only because warm air continues to rise beneath it, lifting the load as easily as a balloon. When you tilt your head and watch the cloud drift lazily, you're seeing a structure so immense it could fill entire valleys, yet it moves in silence, shaped by invisible air currents that swirl and twist above our world. Lightning, on the other hand, is nature's raw electricity, hotter than the surface of the sun. In an instant, a jagged bolt pierces the sky, releasing energy that can heat the surrounding air to over 30,000 degrees Celsius, turning it into plasma and igniting the heavens in a flash so bright it erases color itself. That sudden expansion of air creates a violent pressure wave that rolls outward as thunder, the voice of lightning. Depending on distance, that sound may come as a crack, a pop, a growl, or a slow, rolling drumbeat that travels across the landscape. Counting the seconds between flash and sound reveals how far away the storm is, a natural rhythm that people have watched and measured for centuries. Yet lightning, for all its destructive beauty, also nourishes life. Each strike helps fix nitrogen in the soil, a process vital to plant growth. In that moment of fire and thunder, the sky itself is gardening, feeding the earth below. Raindrops, too, are full of quiet mysteries. They are not shaped like the teardrops we draw as children, but more like tiny, rounded buns, flattened slightly at the bottom by air resistance as they fall. The smallest drops are perfect spheres, bound by surface tension, while larger ones wobble and eventually break apart into smaller droplets. Each one falls through miles of atmosphere, cooling the air, feeding rivers, and bringing new life wherever it lands. And with them comes a fragrance, the scent of rain, called petrichor. It rises when dry earth meets the first drops, releasing oils secreted by plants and a molecule called geosmin made by soil-dwelling microbes. Mixed with a touch of ozone formed by lightning, this perfume of the planet drifts into the air, connecting sky, soil, and life in a single breath. Every time we smell that earthy sweetness after rain, we are inhaling the story of ancient cycles that began long before human memory, and will continue long after us. Then comes snow, the sky's most intricate artwork. Each flake begins as a speck of dust or pollen high above the earth, where moisture freezes into delicate crystals. Depending on temperature and humidity, those crystals grow into stars, plates, needles, or lacy branches, each one unique, never repeating the same design twice. Some flakes drift slowly, barely falling at all, while others tumble faster through the air. Tiny ones may hover like whispers, while large, clustered flakes can fall several meters per second, swirling through invisible air currents that twist and turn them in a slow-motion dance. Under perfect conditions, snowflakes can grow wider than a coin or even as large as a dinner plate, giant, fragile sculptures descending from clouds. In a blizzard, however, that beauty turns fierce. Wind and snow join forces to erase the world, reducing visibility to nothing, wrapping everything in white silence where direction and distance disappear. Within such storms, nature shows its power to both terrify and mesmerize, transforming familiar landscapes into a blank page where only the sound of wind remains. Hailstones, on the other hand, are born in chaos. Inside towering thunderclouds, strong updrafts lift raindrops high into freezing air. There, The drops turn to ice and begin a violent journey of ascent and descent, carried up and down by powerful winds. Each time the stone is thrown upward, it collects a new layer of water that freezes around it, creating rings like those of a tree or the layers of an onion. Eventually, when the stone becomes too heavy for the air to hold, it falls to the ground, sometimes small as a pea, sometimes large enough to shatter windshields. These icy travelers record their history within their layers, the story of a storm written in frozen form. Beyond hail, the atmosphere shapes many other wonders. Consider fog, that quiet blanket that drapes itself over hills and cities. Fog is simply a cloud that has come down to Earth, forming when warm, moist air cools enough for its water vapor to condense into tiny droplets. Each droplet scatters light, softening the edges of the world, muting colors, and wrapping everything in calm stillness. To walk through fog is to step into a dream between worlds, where sound is hushed and distance loses meaning. It's a reminder that the air we breathe is not empty. It is full of invisible water and light, waiting for the right conditions to reveal itself. The thunderstorm's updraft is strong enough that raindrops are carried high into the colder layers of the cloud, where they freeze into tiny pellets of ice. These pellets may then fall downward, gathering more water along the way, only to be lifted again by fierce winds, freezing layer upon layer in the process. By the time they finally fall to Earth, hailstones carry dozens of concentric rings, each one marking a separate journey through the heart of the storm. Sliced open, a hailstone reveals its hidden history, each layer like the rings of a tree or the delicate folds of an onion, whispering the memory of its creation. Small hailstones may bounce harmlessly off rooftops and fields, but larger ones can shatter windows, flatten crops, and dent cars with their icy fists. The largest can weigh more than a pound, sculpted by invisible winds, carved by turbulence, and shaped by temperature and time into perfect crystalline spheres. They are natural sculptures forged in chaos, carrying the story of the storm in their frozen architecture. In July of 2010, in the quiet town of Vivian, South Dakota, one such piece of ice fell from the heavens, a monstrous hailstone nearly 8 inches across, weighing almost 2 pounds, larger than a volleyball. It fell into an open field instead of striking a home or a person, sparing lives but leaving meteorologists awestruck. Each layer of that icy globe told the story of a storm so powerful that it could sculpt something massive from vapor and motion alone. Around the world, other storms have birthed similar giants, each one the frozen heart of thunder, built by the sky's own hand. Most hailstones are small as peas or marbles, but once in a great while, nature reminds us that even the air above us can craft weapons of ice. And sometimes, the sky spins into something even stranger. Tornadoes are among the most astonishing and terrifying expressions of atmospheric energy. They twist across the land with winds so intense that the world itself seems to warp. Within the grip of a tornado, even the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Lightweight straw, soft and harmless in the hand, can be driven straight through solid wood as if it were nothing but paper. The wind accelerates debris to unimaginable speeds, turning gentle objects into piercing projectiles. After powerful tornadoes, fence posts and tree trunks have been found impaled with straw, leaves, and even bits of gravel, impossible evidence of air-made weapon. The tornado bends the rules of ordinary experience, creating a world where grass becomes a needle, and air becomes an iron fist. The fastest tornadoes, rated EF5 on the enhanced Fujita scale, can produce winds exceeding 300 miles per hour, as fast as a passenger jet at cruising speed. These are storms that can lift entire houses, toss trucks like toys, and strip asphalt from the ground. To those who have stood near them, the sound is unforgettable, a deep, continuous roar like a freight train tearing through the world. And yet, for all their terror, tornadoes are brief, narrow, and precise compared to the vast power of hurricanes, which are storms on an entirely different scale. A hurricane is the Earth's greatest weather engine, a swirling cathedral of air and water that can stretch hundreds of miles across. Fueled by the warmth of tropical oceans, it draws heat and moisture into a spiraling dance of clouds, building into a vast machine of motion. The energy released by a mature hurricane in a single day exceeds that produced by every power plant on Earth combined. Every coal fire, Every wind turbine, every reactor and solar array would still fall short of what nature releases through billions of condensing droplets. Most of that energy radiates as heat, but the rest becomes wind and wave, power enough to sculpt coastlines and reshape landscapes. To stand near the edge of a hurricane is to feel the breath of the planet itself, vast and alive, while satellites in orbit capture its swirling beauty, an immense spiral of clouds with a calm, circular heart. The eye of a hurricane is a world unto itself. Step into it, and you will find an eerie peace. After hours of howling wind and blinding rain, silence descends. The air clears, the sea steadies, and the sun sometimes shines through broken clouds. For a few moments, it feels like the storm has ended. But around that serene eye stands the eye wall, a towering ring of thunderclouds where winds rage at their fiercest. The eye is calm only because chaos surrounds it, a quiet at the center of a cosmic wheel. To witness it is to see the strange poetry of weather, peace nested inside violence, beauty elsewhere on earth. Other winds rise and fall with gentler rhythms. The monsoon, for example, is a seasonal heartbeat that transforms entire continents. In South Asia, Africa, and beyond, life itself follows its rhythm. For months, the land lies cracked and thirsty under a punishing sun. Then, as the seasons turn, warm ocean winds shift direction, carrying moisture inland. Suddenly the skies burst open, and the dry earth drinks deeply. Rivers swell, fields flood, and hillsides turn green almost overnight. The monsoon's rains bring life, filling rice paddies, feeding forests, and restoring balance. But they also bring danger. Landslides tumble down mountainsides, and floods sweep through villages. In India, entire cultures and calendars are built around this rhythm. Festivals welcome the rain like an old friend. The monsoon is more than weather, it is the pulse of the land itself, a vast atmospheric migration that turns the wheel of life. But where there is abundance, there is also absence. On the other side of the spectrum lies the Atacama Desert in Chile, one of the driest places on Earth. In some regions, not a single drop of rain has ever been recorded. The soil is so barren that NASA has used it to test rovers designed for Mars. Yet even here, life clings to possibility. Certain plants collect moisture from fog that drifts in from the coast, and microbes live deep underground, sustained by whispers of humidity. On rare occasions, when rain does fall, the desert transforms in an explosion of color. Wildflowers bloom across the sands in a miraculous event called the Desierto Florido, the flowering desert, a fleeting spectacle that lasts only weeks but reveals how life waits patiently, ready to rise at the first touch of rain. In contrast, at the other extreme, the village of Mawsynram in northeastern India is drenched by nearly 12 meters of rain every year, the wettest inhabited place on Earth. There, the sound of water is constant, a ceaseless symphony of drops and streams. People have adapted beautifully, weaving living root bridges from fig trees that grow stronger over generations, spanning the torrents that rush through their valleys. The roofs are built thick and strong to endure months of downpour. In Mawsynram, rain is not an event, it is a way of life, a teacher, a companion. Between the wet and the dry, the world also knows heat and cold in their purest forms. In July of 1913, in Death Valley, California, the temperature reached a staggering 56.7 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt asphalt, warp metal, and bake the ground into shimmering waves of mirage. Air wavers like liquid glass, and the horizon ripples with phantom lakes that vanish when approached. The desert heat is relentless, yet it shapes landscapes of haunting beauty, dunes that hum in the wind, rocks cracked by centuries of sun, and twilight skies that blaze like fire before fading to velvet night. At the other extreme, Antarctica holds the record for the coldest temperature ever measured on Earth, -89.2 degrees Celsius at the Soviet station Vostok. There, the air is so dry it glitters, and every breath crystallizes instantly. Sound barely carries, and even metal can snap like glass. Yet beneath the ice, lakes remain liquid, sealed under kilometers of frozen water, harboring hidden ecosystems untouched for millennia. The world's greatest extremes, heat and cold, dryness and deluge, remind us how adaptable and resilient this planet is. Beyond the obvious weather, the atmosphere holds subtler wonders. When the conditions are just right, light itself plays games with moisture and air. A fogbow, for instance, is a ghostly cousin of the rainbow, a pale, white arc formed when sunlight meets tiny droplets of mist. Unlike a rainbow, whose colors burst bright and clear, a fogbow glows softly, its hues washed out by the small size of the droplets. It feels like a dream painted onto the air, a spectral curve that seems to hover at the edge of visibility. Mirages, too, are born of light and temperature. On hot days, layers of air bend light downward, creating the illusion of water where none exists. Travelers across deserts and highways see lakes that disappear as they approach, reflections of sky on heat-shimmered ground. In the polar regions, the same principle can make the sun rise early or linger long after it has set, stretched and distorted into strange, ethereal shapes. And then there are the lights that dance where storms touch the edge of space. Above thunderstorms, in the thin upper atmosphere, live the elusive sprites, blue jets, and elves, bursts of color and energy invisible to most eyes. Sprites flash red and ghostly, reaching upward like tendrils. Blue jets shoot into the stratosphere, and circular halos of light, called elves, bloom and fade in an instant. These electric phenomena, once dismissed as myths, are now captured by sensitive cameras, proof that even lightning has its secrets. They remind us that our planet's weather reaches far beyond the clouds we see, touching the borders of space itself. Yet not all wonders are violent or fleeting. There is also the quiet magic of dawn, that fragile moment when the first light brushes the sky. As the sun rises, the atmosphere scatters short wavelengths of light, painting the horizon in soft pinks, golds, and blues. Birds stir, mist lifts from fields, and the world awakens to another cycle of warmth and air. At dusk, the process reverses, and the sky deepens into indigo, then violet, then the infinite black of night. High cirrus clouds catch the last rays of sunlight, glowing long after the ground has gone dark, while below, city lights shimmer like constellations mirrored on Earth. And above all of it, through every cloud and storm, the aurora dances. In polar skies, charged particles from the sun meet the magnetic field of our planet, spiraling downward to collide with oxygen and nitrogen atoms. The air itself begins to glow, rippling in curtains of green, red, and violet. The aurora is the atmosphere made visible, the breath of space woven into light. To watch it is to see the invisible world revealed, a cosmic dance between Earth and Sun that has played for billions of years. When you step back and see it all, hail and hurricanes, deserts and monsoons, lightning sprites and fogbows, it becomes clear that weather is more than a backdrop to our lives. It is a living system, a vast and delicate balance that connects ocean to sky, sunlight to soil, and every breath we take to the wider rhythm of the planet. The same air that spins a tornado also carries the scent of rain. The same water that floods valleys also feeds seeds that bloom. Every gust of wind, every drop of dew, every distant rumble of thunder is part of Earth's endless conversation with itself. And as you listen, quietly, gently, you begin to hear the pattern within the chaos, the music beneath the storm. Weather is not only motion and energy. It is the planet dreaming out loud, painting in light, sculpting in wind, and singing in rain. So tonight, as you drift to sleep, imagine yourself floating high above it all, watching clouds drift and lightning flicker in the distance, knowing that you are part of this breathing, swirling, luminous world, a world where even the air has stories to tell. In Death Valley, California, a furnace-like wind sweeps across the cracked desert floor, carrying the scent of scorched rock and the shimmer of heat so intense it seems to bend the horizon itself. The air trembles under the weight of the sun, and in the heart of this vast basin lies the hottest place ever reliably recorded on Earth. On a July day in 1913, the temperature reached 56.7 degrees Celsius, 134 degrees Fahrenheit, a figure so high that metal becomes painful to touch, asphalt softens underfoot, and car tires risk melting if they roll too long on the road. Even in the shade, the air presses close, thick with heat, and every breath feels like inhaling through cloth warmed by fire. The human body, built to shed warmth through sweat, can no longer keep pace. Moisture evaporates too quickly, and dehydration sets in with quiet menace. Death Valley earned its name from these extremes, where daytime heat ripples off rocks like waves of light, and the silence feels eternal, broken only by the sigh of hot wind over salt and stone. Other places, in Kuwait or Iran, have come close, but Death Valley still holds the crown, not just for its record but for the relentless regularity of its furnace days. It stands as a reminder that the air above us, which we often think of as gentle and sustaining, can also become a weapon, a blazing engine of nature's extremes. The atmosphere that brings soft rains and cool breezes can, under the right conditions, turn into a searing, merciless force. Yet for all its heat, the desert holds its own strange beauty. At sunset, the sky ignites in hues of crimson and gold, and when night descends, the temperature plummets as fast as it rose. Stars emerge by the thousands, clear and sharp against the darkness, as if the universe itself leans closer to see this place that mirrors the surface of another world. At the opposite extreme lies the frozen heart of our planet, Antarctica, where cold reaches a purity that feels almost alien. On the high plateau, far from the ocean's moderating touch, the air itself turns to crystal. Here, in 1983, scientists at Vostok Station recorded a temperature of -89.2 degrees Celsius, colder than dry ice, cold enough to make steel brittle and glass shatter. In nearby hollows, satellites have since measured readings approaching -98 degrees, pushing the limits of what life and machinery can endure. In such cold, breath freezes into tiny sparks that fall like dust, and even sound changes, carrying only faintly through the thin, still air. Exposed skin can freeze solid in seconds. Metal tools must be handled with thick gloves or risk fusing to the flesh. Yet even here, weather moves. Winds howl across the ice at speeds that carve snow into ridges and ripples like frozen waves. Above them, faint halos circle the sun, created by ice crystals drifting in the air. It is a place of silence and motion together, the atmosphere stripped to its essence, raw and eternal. To survive here demands more than strength. It requires respect for a world that belongs as much to the sky as to the earth. Antarctica is not merely cold, it is the boundary where the familiar laws of warmth and comfort dissolve into something grander and more profound, the meeting of air, light, and endless ice. Between these two extremes, the searing deserts and the frozen poles, the atmosphere shows its subtler moods, each one a reminder of how alive and delicate our world is. Among all natural threats, none is more quietly deadly than the heatwave. While storms rage visibly and floods roar through cities, the heatwave arrives in silence. The air grows heavy, the wind still, and each day's warmth lingers into the night. Asphalt and concrete soak up sunlight, turning cities into ovens that refuse to cool. By midnight, walls and roads release their stored heat, and even the darkness feels bright with warmth. For days or weeks, the temperature hovers near the limits of endurance. The human heart beats faster to shed heat, sweat pours from the skin, yet provides little relief. Dehydration thickens the blood, and exhaustion creeps in like a shadow. Heatwaves kill more people than any other kind of weather, not through spectacle, but through quiet persistence. The elderly, the very young, and those without shelter are most at risk, yet even the strong can falter under the relentless blaze. Crops wither, rivers warm, and fish suffocate in overheated water. The damage unfolds invisibly, in hospital wards, in power outages, in fields turned to dust. The heatwave is the atmosphere's whisper of warning, proof that stillness can be as deadly as any storm. Then, without warning, the world can turn soft again. Fog drifts in, a cloud brought to the ground, cloaking everything in pale silence. It rolls over valleys and rivers, wraps around buildings, and makes the horizon disappear. In ordinary fog, the world feels muted, familiar yet distant. But in rare moments, the mist becomes so dense that even one's own feet vanish from sight. The air thickens to milk, and sound changes shape, every noise close and muffled, as if the world itself has drawn a blanket over its head. Airplanes are grounded, ships slow to a crawl, and drivers inch forward with ghostly caution. Despite its softness, fog can be one of the most dangerous kinds of weather, blinding sight and confusing direction. Yet to walk within it is strangely peaceful. like moving through a dream where edges and outlines dissolve. Light scatters softly, turning the world to watercolor. Each step feels suspended between the known and the unknown. In its calmest moments, fog reminds us that even the atmosphere's gentlest expressions can transform reality into something mysterious and otherworldly. In deserts, where fog is rare and rain even rarer, the atmosphere finds another way to offer life, through dew. As the sun sets, the sand and stone cool quickly, and when the air temperature dips below its dew point, moisture begins to form on every surface. Tiny beads of water collect on rocks, leaves, and grains of sand, each droplet glinting like a jewel under the first light of dawn. For plants and animals here, this quiet condensation is a gift beyond measure. Certain beetles tilt their bodies to capture dew, letting the droplets roll down into their mouths. Some plants channel it along their stems toward thirsty roots. Even humans have learned to harvest using fine nets and smooth surfaces designed to catch these glimmers of moisture. Though each droplet is small, together they sustain life in places where rain may not fall for months. Dew is desert rain delivered in whispers, a silent promise that even in the driest air, the atmosphere never forgets how to give. When the air grows colder, another transformation begins. On still winter mornings, frost paints windows with intricate patterns, curling leaves, ferns, and feathers of ice. Each design forms as water vapor freezes directly onto a cold surface, bypassing the liquid stage entirely. But in certain conditions, frost grows wilder, building not just patterns but entire forests of ice. On mountain peaks and polar plains, hoarfrost stretches upward into spiky towers, catching the morning light like glass sculptures. Each spike grows slowly as vapor condenses and freezes on its surface, layer by delicate layer, until the landscape bristles with frozen blades. They gleam in the first rays of sunlight, fragile and perfect, yet crumble to dust at a single touch. For a few hours, the world becomes crystalline, transformed into a realm of silent beauty built from nothing but cold air and breath. Sometimes, however, the beauty of ice hides danger. During an ice storm, rain falls through a layer of freezing air near the ground. The droplets remain liquid as they descend but are poised on the edge of transformation. The instant they touch a surface, a branch, a road, a power line, they freeze solid. Overnight, the world becomes encased in a transparent shell. Trees turn to glass sculptures, streets and cars shimmer under streetlights. Every blade of grass glows with frozen brilliance. At dawn, the sun breaks through, and the landscape sparkles as if the world were made of diamonds. But beneath that beauty lies peril. Roads are slick and deadly, power lines sag under the weight of ice, and trees snap with sharp cracks that echo through the cold. Whole neighborhoods can lose power for days, cut off by fallen wires. To walk outside during an ice storm is to move through a dream both breathtaking and treacherous, a fragile world that could shatter with the lightest touch. Not all atmospheric dances happen in cold or calm. Some are born in the dry heat of day. On a sun-baked afternoon, when the ground grows hotter than the air above, invisible currents begin to rise. If these columns of warm air start to spin, they become dust devils, small whirlwinds that skip and dance across the land. Most are playful, harmless, spiraling just a few feet wide and lasting only seconds. But sometimes they grow immense, twisting towers of dust that rise taller than skyscrapers, visible from miles away. Pilots flying over deserts have reported seeing them as colossal columns stretching toward the clouds, their bases sweeping across dunes in a slow, hypnotic dance. Unlike tornadoes, which form from thunderstorm clouds, dust devils are born under clear skies, sculpted by sunlight and heat. To watch one is to see the invisible made visible, the unseen breath of the earth suddenly given form. They spin in silence, vanishing as quickly as they appear, leaving behind only rippled sand and the faint memory of motion. Over the ocean, a similar ballet unfolds, but this time with water instead of dust. On quiet mornings at sea, slender funnels sometimes reach down from clouds to touch the waves below, water spouts, the ocean's version of tornadoes. At first they appear delicate, ghost-like, twisting columns of mist rising from the surface. They spin and shimmer, drawing spray upward in graceful spirals that merge with the sky. Most are gentle, lasting only minutes before collapsing back into the sea. But the stronger ones can churn waves into walls, toss small boats aside, and snap masts with sudden violence. From a distance, they look almost beautiful, liquid towers shimmering in sunlight, but up close, their power is unmistakable. Mariners once called them sea devils, believing they drank the ocean itself. In truth, they are another expression of the atmosphere's restless energy, where heat, humidity, and rotation meet in perfect alignment. Even as they fade, they leave behind rings of disturbed water, like fingerprints on the surface of the world. From scorching deserts to frozen plains, from quiet fog to spinning storms, the air that surrounds us is never truly still. It carries our weather, our seasons, and our survival. It sculpts frost and fire alike, shapes clouds and winds, and ties every living thing to the same invisible rhythm. The same air that bakes the deserts also cools the polar night. The same moisture that forms fog on a window can one day rise into a thunderhead. Weather is not chaos, it is connection, an endless cycle of transformation. Every droplet of dew, every spark of lightning, every whisper of wind is part of a single story, the story of Earth breathing. And as we watch it, feel it, and live within it, we are reminded that the atmosphere is not something above us, it is us, the very breath of the planet, alive, eternal, and full of wonder. The sky, a living bridge between our planet and the sun's restless fire. But beyond the aurora's ghostly curtains, the world of weather holds still more wonders and extremes, natural phenomena that test the limits of air, light, and life itself. Consider the mirage, that shimmering illusion where the horizon bends and deceives. On hot days, when sunlight strikes layers of air at sharply different temperatures, light rays bend, curving toward the denser, cooler air near the ground. This bending tricks the eye into seeing water where there is none, pools that glimmer and vanish as you approach, ships floating in the sky, mountains inverted and doubled. In polar regions, superior mirages, known as Fata Morgana, can lift whole icebergs into the air, stacking them like floating castles. What you see is not a lie, but a glimpse of how light dances through shifting air, how the atmosphere itself becomes a lens painting the impossible. And then there is the fogbow, a cousin to the rainbow. When sunlight meets tiny droplets of mist rather than raindrops, the result is not vivid color, but a ghostly white arc that glows faintly against the fog. Sailors once called it the white rainbow, a soft halo that appears like an echo of light, reminding us that even within grayness, beauty hides. Fogbows are rare gifts of dawn, appearing when sunlight barely pierces through the haze, illuminating the sky with quiet grace. In these moments, the world feels suspended between dream and day, and the air itself seems to hum with serenity. The same sunlight that creates fogbows also crafts rainbows, the atmosphere's most familiar masterpiece. Each droplet of rain acts like a prism, splitting sunlight into its spectral colors. To see a rainbow, you must stand with the sun behind you and rain before you, a precise alignment of geometry and chance. Sometimes a second arc appears, fainter and reversed, born from light reflecting twice within droplets. Between these two, the sky darkens in what scientists call Alexander's band. Beyond that, in the rarest of conditions, you might even glimpse a moonbow, rainbow made from moonlight, pale and ethereal, visible only to the patient and the watchful. Every rainbow, fleeting as it is, reminds us that weather can be both science and poetry, physics made visible, wonder made tangible. Lightning, however, is weather's pure energy unleashed. Each bolt splits the air with a temperature hotter than the surface of the sun, creating a shockwave we hear as thunder. But above thunderstorms, far beyond where the eye usually looks, even stranger lights flicker, sprites, blue jets, and elves, forms of lightning that dance at the edge of space. Sprites are vast red tendrils that flash upward from storm tops, stretching tens of miles toward the mesosphere. Blue jets spear higher still, like ghostly flames leaping from the clouds. Elves bloom briefly in luminous rings hundreds of miles wide. For centuries, pilots saw them and were disbelieved. Now, cameras confirm their reality, revealing that the sky above storms hums with unseen fire. It is as if lightning reaches both down to earth and up to the stars, bridging worlds. And when lightning touches the ground, It can fuse sand into glass, start fires, or even create ball lightning, mysterious glowing orbs that drift and fade without explanation. Each flash is part of a global circuit. At any moment, thousands of storms crackle somewhere around the world, their electricity maintaining the balance between earth and sky. Weather is not only local, it is planetary, electric, alive. Sometimes, however, the power of weather manifests not as light but as silence. At dawn, when the world lies between night and day, a special stillness often fills the air. The winds pause. The temperature steadies. Dew glistens on grass. Birds begin to call one by one, their voices echoing across misty fields. The calm of dawn's skies has a name. The atmospheric boundary layer resets, and the earth exhales the coolness of night. In that fragile hour, the weather feels intimate, as if the planet is holding its breath before awakening. It is the opposite of a storm, a moment of quiet equilibrium when all forces balance perfectly. But balance never lasts. Heat waves roll in with relentless intensity, air shimmering like liquid glass. Cities bake under still skies. The smell of hot pavement fills the air. Elsewhere, cold snaps descend like invisible beasts, freezing rivers solid overnight. In Siberia's Oymyakon, breath freezes into powder, and even ink can solidify in pens. On mountaintops like Denali or Everest, winds tear at over 150 miles per hour, shaping ice into smooth sculptures called sastrugi. The cold there hums like metal, vibrating in your bones. Weather extremes reveal how narrow the comfort zone of life truly is, and how adaptable life must be to survive them. Among all these extremes, there are rare marvels that seem almost magical. Sundogs, for instance, bright spots of light that flank the sun, caused by ice crystals drifting in the upper atmosphere. When conditions are perfect, they form halos, full circles of light, like celestial crowns in the sky. Sometimes they combine into double halos or intersecting arcs, a phenomenon so intricate it seems drawn by hand. Ancient people saw them as omens. Today we see them as a quiet wonder of geometry and ice. Mirages shimmer in deserts, but in polar regions, the reverse occurs: ice mirages, where distant landscapes appear warped, elevated, or multiplied, reflections born from extreme cold bending light. The atmosphere becomes a stage of illusion, showing us not just what exists, but what could appear if light chose a different path. Then there are dust storms, walls of earth and sky colliding. In places like the Sahara or the American Southwest, entire fronts of dust hundreds of meters high can roll across the land, turning day into dusk. The wind roars like an ocean. Visibility drops to nothing. Yet within this chaos lies renewal. Dust from the Sahara carries nutrients that feed the Amazon rainforest across the Atlantic. Even destruction, in the grand cycles of weather, can seed life elsewhere. Tornadoes, too, in their terrible majesty, are sculptors of the atmosphere. Born from supercells, they twist downward in dark funnels, roaring with winds that can exceed 300 miles per hour. Yet within their violence lies order, a perfect balance of pressure, rotation, and heat. Scientists still chase them across the plains, not only to understand their fury, but to glimpse the beauty of symmetry in chaos. And beyond tornadoes rise hurricanes, the mightiest engines of air and water. Viewed from space, a hurricane's eye appears tranquil, a perfect circle surrounded by whirling arms of cloud. Within the eye, the air is calm, sometimes even sunlit, while walls of storm rage around it. These cyclones draw energy from warm oceans, transforming heat into motion, their spiral bands sweeping across thousands of miles. When they make landfall, their power humbles us. Winds uproot forests, tides rise into cities, yet even as destruction unfolds, new patterns of life follow. The planet rebuilds itself endlessly. Tornadoes, too, in their terrible majesty, are sculptors of the atmosphere. Born from supercells, they twist downward in dark funnels, roaring with winds that can exceed 300 miles per hour. Yet within their violence lies order, a perfect balance of pressure, rotation, and heat. Scientists still chase them across the plains, not only to understand their fury, but to glimpse the beauty of symmetry in chaos. And beyond tornadoes rise hurricanes, the mightiest engines of air and water. Viewed from space, a hurricane's eye appears tranquil, a perfect circle surrounded by whirling arms of cloud. Within the eye, the air is calm, sometimes even sunlit, while walls of storm rage around it. These cyclones draw energy from warm oceans, transforming heat into motion, their spiral bands sweeping across thousands of miles. When they make landfall, their power humbles us. Winds uproot forests, tides rise into cities, yet even as destruction unfolds, new patterns of life follow. The planet rebuilds itself endlessly. When storms fade, fog returns. Gentle, timeless, it creeps through valleys and along coastlines, reclaiming silence. Over lakes at dawn, fog rises like breath from the water, glowing with pale sunlight. It softens every sound and blurs every edge, making the world seem infinite. Within fog's quiet embrace, time slows, and the weather whispers rather than roars. Above it all, high in the stratosphere, the polar stratospheric clouds, also called nacreous clouds, glow like mother of pearl in twilight. Their iridescence comes from ice crystals so fine they scatter light into shifting pastels. They are both rare and fragile, forming only in the coldest upper air of winter near the poles. When they appear, they look like rippling silk stretched across the heavens. But their beauty hides danger. They play a role in depleting ozone, reminding us that even beauty can carry consequence. Further south, over tropical seas, waterspouts rise like spirals of silver, twisting across blue horizons. In frozen lands, blizzards blur sky and earth into a single colorless expanse. In deserts, hubbubs, massive dust fronts, sweep across dunes with thunderous energy. On rare nights, moonlight glitters on frost like tiny constellations scattered underfoot. Everywhere, the weather writes stories of transformation, heat into wind, water into ice, calm into storm. Even sound itself changes with the air. After snow falls, the world grows hushed because snow absorbs and scatters sound waves. During humid nights, distant trains or thunder seem closer, carried more efficiently through moist air. The atmosphere is not silent. It is a vast resonating body, singing the physics of the world. At the end of all these wonders lies perhaps the most subtle of all, the changing scent of the air before rain. That earthy, sweet smell, petrichor, comes from oils released by plants and molecules like geosmin produced by soil bacteria. When rain begins, it carries these fragrances into the wind, announcing itself before it arrives. To breathe it in is to feel the planet refreshing itself, the cycle renewing once again. From the searing heart of Death Valley to the frozen stillness of Vostok Station, from fog bows and mirages to lightning sprites and auroras, weather is the poetry of the planet written in motion and light. It connects deserts to oceans, mountains to skies, humans to the cosmos. Every drop, gust, flash, and whisper is part of a grand conversation, the earth speaking through air and water. And as we listen, in awe and humility, we realize that weather is not just what happens around us, it is life itself, breathing, shimmering, and endlessly changing across the face of the world. Light travels across the sky, connecting the sun and earth in an invisible dialogue that never ceases, even when the air around us feels still. Solar storms are among the most powerful expressions of that conversation, vast tempests of plasma and magnetic energy that erupt from the sun's surface, racing across the void at astonishing speeds. When they reach our planet, sometimes in just a couple of days, they rattle Earth's magnetic field and ignite the skies in curtains of light known as auroras. These shimmering displays dance above the poles, transforming the night into a living ocean of color. Yet their beauty hides their strength, for those same solar storms can disturb satellites, disrupt power grids, and even alter the circulation of our atmosphere. Some scientists believe these outbursts may temporarily influence weather patterns, subtly shifting how the atmosphere absorbs the sun's energy. The connections are faint and complex, but they remind us that our planet's weather is never entirely its own. We live within the sun's reach, every breath of wind and turn of cloud guided, in some way, by that distant star's invisible hand. Even on the clearest days, when the sky seems perfectly calm, the faint pulse of solar activity continues to ripple through the air around us. The weather we feel is only part of a grander story, one that stretches from the fiery surface of the sun to the quiet blue dome above our heads. Sometimes, human hands shape that story too, not by intent, but by consequence. Look up on a bright afternoon, and you might see thin, silver streaks crossing the sky, the contrails of airplanes. Formed when hot exhaust meets cold, moist air, they stretch and linger, weaving intricate patterns that slowly dissolve into delicate cirrus clouds. Though they appear fragile, contrails can change local weather by altering how sunlight and heat move through the atmosphere. In regions with heavy air traffic, these artificial clouds subtly shift the balance of day and night, trapping warmth after sunset and slightly cooling afternoons. After the sudden grounding of flights in the United States following September 11, 2001, scientists noticed that daily temperature differences grew unusually wide, evidence of how much those faint lines of condensation normally influence the sky's equilibrium. It is a quiet reminder that even the smallest gestures, a plane passing thousands of meters above us, can ripple outward into the grand choreography of Earth's atmosphere, painting the air in unseen ways and reshaping how the planet breathes. And when that balance tips, the results can be dramatic. Flash floods reveal water's fierce and sudden power. Usually, rivers carve valleys slowly, shaping stone grain by grain over centuries. But when torrents of rain fall in a short span, nature abandons patience. Streams swell into roaring walls of water that rush down slopes, carrying sand, branches, and even boulders heavier than cars. Entire landscapes can be transformed in a single night as dry gullies become violent rivers, erasing roads, uprooting trees, and redrawing the land. The danger lies not only in the force but in the surprise. Floods often strike under skies that appear calm only moments before. For those who witness them, the sight is unforgettable. The whisper of water turned to a voice of thunder. It is gravity, unleashed through the storm, reminding us how weather can turn the gentlest element into one of nature's most devastating forces. Yet sometimes, weather speaks through absence rather than abundance. Drought is the silence between raindrops, a story told not in storms but in waiting. When rains fail, life pauses. Rivers shrink, soils crack, and the rhythm of the seasons falters. While most droughts last only months or years, history holds evidence of megadroughts that stretched across centuries, vast dry ages recorded in the narrow rings of ancient trees and the dust of vanished lakes. In the medieval centuries, the western United States endured such desolation, when rain refused to fall for generations. Forests withered into grasslands, grasslands faded into desert. Entire civilizations were forced to move, adapt, or vanish. Drought is weather at its quietest, but not its weakest. In stillness, it transforms everything, the land, the people, and even the stories they tell, proving that nature's gentlest mood can be its most enduring. Sometimes, it is not silence but rhythm that drives the climate's great cycles. Every few years, the Pacific Ocean begins to warm in a pattern called El Niño. It starts as a whisper, a slight increase in sea temperature, but soon grows into a planetary wave that touches every corner of the world. Winds shift across the equator, ocean currents change direction, and the sky begins to echo with new moods. South America is drenched in torrential rains, while Asia endures drought. Hurricanes, monsoons, and even winter storms in North America can change course or intensity, guided by the ocean's pulse. What begins as a warm shimmer on the water's surface becomes a global ripple, a reminder that Earth's weather is a single, connected system. The ocean and the sky are partners in a never-ending dance. One breathes, the other answers. Then, just as suddenly, the pendulum swings back. The Pacific cools, the winds strengthen, and La Niña takes its turn. Where El Niño brings warmth and rain, La Niña brings chill and dryness. Croplands that were flooded one year may wither the next. Typhoons shift paths, and winters bite harder in places unaccustomed to the cold. Together, these cycles form the heartbeat of the planet's climate, alternating warmth and coolness like a slow, eternal tide. Though invisible to the human eye, these oscillations reach across the globe, shaping rainfall in Africa, winds in Asia, and storm tracks over the Atlantic. To think that a change in the ocean thousands of kilometers away can alter the weather over distant mountains is to glimpse the deep interconnectedness of our world. A planet whose every cloud and current moves in shared rhythm. Beneath the ocean's glittering surface, powerful rivers of water flow unseen, ocean currents that carry the planet's warmth like veins of fire beneath the sea. These vast streams, driven by wind, temperature, and Earth's rotation, circulate heat from the equator toward the poles and back again. Without them, the equatorial regions would bake under endless heat, while the mid-latitudes would freeze in darkness. The ocean's movement is Earth's great balancing act, moderating extremes, distributing sunlight, and keeping the planet habitable. From space, these currents swirl like living art, vast spirals of motion that shimmer beneath the surface. Standing barefoot at the edge of the sea, feeling a warm current brush past your ankles, is to touch the pulse of that ancient machine, the silent engine that connects continents and seasons, turning chaos into harmony. Among these great rivers of the sea, none is more influential than the Gulf Stream. Flowing from the Gulf of Mexico across the Atlantic toward Europe, it carries immense volumes of warm water that release their heat into the air as they travel. That warmth drifts eastward, softening Europe's winters and allowing farmlands to flourish at latitudes that would otherwise be locked in ice. Without the Gulf Stream, much of northern Europe might resemble the frozen tundra of Siberia. Its steady flow has shaped the course of civilizations, their harvests, and even their histories. Scientists now watch it closely, for any shift in this current could ripple across the entire world, altering rainfall, storms, and temperatures in ways both subtle and profound. But for now, it continues to flow, a hidden guardian of the world's gentle balance, carrying sunlight across the sea. High above the Arctic, another force spins, the polar vortex. This swirling mass of frigid air circles the pole, contained by powerful winds in the upper atmosphere. Most of the time, it remains stable, keeping the cold locked in its icy domain. But sometimes, the vortex weakens and wobbles, allowing fingers of Arctic air to spill southward. When this happens, cities far from the pole, from Chicago to Berlin, find themselves plunged into sudden, brutal cold. Frost creeps into every corner, rivers freeze, and the world seems to pause beneath a sky that feels sharper than glass. It is a reminder that the atmosphere, though vast, is fragile, and that even high above where no one can see, invisible shifts can change life on the ground in an instant. Still, not all the sky's moods are violent. Between storms, in the quiet spaces of weather, other wonders appear. Fog settles over valleys like a blanket, softening every sound and turning the world into a painting of silhouettes. Sometimes, in the early morning when the sun rises behind it, a fogbow appears, a pale, ghostly rainbow made of mist instead of raindrops. Its colors are faint, almost white, like a dream of light rather than the real thing. Far out at sea, mirages shimmer on the horizon, bending light to make ships appear to float in the air. These illusions remind us that weather is not only power but poetry, an artist painting with sunlight and air. And then there are the skies that flash with mysteries even scientists still study with awe. High above thunderstorms, beyond the clouds where planes fly, red and blue lightning sprites flicker like living sparks. They last only milliseconds but stretch for kilometers, towering pillars of light that connect the clouds to the edge of space. For centuries they went unnoticed, invisible to human eyes, until cameras caught their fleeting shapes. Now we know they are part of the grand electric orchestra of the atmosphere, cousins to lightning, but rarer, stranger, and hauntingly beautiful. As night gives way to dawn, weather rests. The winds calm, fog breathes across fields, and the world seems to hold its breath as light returns. The first rays of morning touch the tops of clouds, turning them pink and gold. Dew forms on leaves, the tiniest expression of the planet's endless cycle of evaporation and condensation. Each droplet catches the sunrise like a jewel. In that stillness, we glimpse the gentlest face of weather, the balance between warmth and chill, motion and rest. It is a reminder that all the storms, floods, droughts, and winds belong to a single living system, a planet that is constantly in motion, constantly changing, and yet always finding its way back to calm. From solar storms that ripple through the void to the silent rise of mist at dawn, Earth's weather is an unending conversation between fire and water, air and stone, sun and sea. It is both chaos and order, fury and peace. Every gust of wind carries the memory of distant oceans. Every raindrop has circled the world countless times. To listen to weather is to listen to the heartbeat of the planet itself, an ancient rhythm that has shaped every life that walks, swims, or soars beneath the sky. And as we drift into sleep beneath that vast, breathing canopy, the atmosphere continues its timeless dance, whispering stories of sunlight and shadow, reminding us that we are part of a world always in motion, always alive, always dreaming. Rivers of wind and ice, storms of fire and light, Earth's weather is an unending symphony, each note shaped by heat, pressure, and time. When the polar vortex swirls high above the Arctic, it holds within its icy crown the memory of ancient winters. Though the term has become familiar in modern headlines, the phenomenon itself is as old as the planet's atmosphere. It is part of the Earth's deep rhythm, a reminder that the Arctic is not a distant world sealed away, but a living part of our shared climate engine. When bitter cold sweeps across cities far from the poles, it is the breath of that great frozen whirlpool reaching outward, tracing invisible paths that connect every latitude. And just as the air can descend from the poles, the Earth itself can speak upward through fire. For when a volcano erupts with tremendous force, it changes weather around the entire globe. Explosive eruptions propel ash and gas high into the stratosphere, where winds spread them across continents. Tiny particles of sulfur dioxide linger for months, reflecting sunlight back into space and cooling the planet below. In 1815, the eruption of Mount Tambora created what became known as the year without a summer, when frost bit crops in June and rivers froze beneath strange, ash-colored skies. People starved while sunsets glowed red with the haze of volcanic dust. More than a century later, in 1991, Mount Pinatubo erupted and once again the planet cooled, its climate breathing slower beneath the shroud of suspended ash. These moments remind us that even the fire of the Earth's heart can whisper into the sky, changing how sunlight and cloud converse across the world. Sometimes, the line between fire and weather blurs entirely. When forests burn with relentless heat, their rising flames create columns of smoke so powerful that they birth new clouds, pyrocumulus towers, storm clouds born of fire. Within them, ash and dust particles collide, generating static electricity, and soon lightning flashes down from a cloud made not of rain but of flame. Each bolt may ignite more fires, feeding a cycle where destruction gives birth to its own storm. Firefighters on the ground sometimes look up to see the sky flicker with lightning while the forest beneath them roars, a haunting union of flame and thunder. Smoke itself becomes a sculptor of weather. Its fine particles act as seeds for condensation, forming strange clouds that drift across continents. In the right light, they glow orange or crimson, staining the twilight with colors that seem otherworldly. Pilots flying through smoke report skies so thick and dark that noon feels like evening. The air carries stories from distant fires, and sometimes the smoke rises so high that it reaches the stratosphere, circling the globe in thin gray veils. These traveling clouds subtly bend sunlight, slightly cool the air, and remind us that no storm or flame is truly isolated. Every breath of wind belongs to a planetary whole. Even deserts, the quietest landscapes of all, are part of this conversation. Each year, winds sweep across the Sahara, lifting millions of tons of fine, golden dust into the sky. These tiny grains travel thousands of miles across the Atlantic, forming long, shimmering veils visible from space. When the dust finally settles, much of it lands in the Amazon rainforest, delivering phosphorus and other nutrients essential for life. Without this exchange, parts of the Amazon might wither, its soil too poor to sustain its abundance. The idea that one of Earth's driest places nourishes one of its wettest shows the hidden threads binding our planet together, a global tapestry woven by air. Every breath we take contains fragments of distant worlds, microscopic remnants of dunes, seas, and volcanic ash carried across the sky. Storms too can transform not only air but sea. When hurricanes spiral across the ocean, their winds churn the water until it glows. Beneath the towering waves, countless plankton, microscopic organisms, begin to shimmer with ghostly blue light. This bioluminescence, caused by chemical reactions inside the creatures as they are disturbed, turns stormy seas into living light shows. Sailors tell stories of traveling through waters that glowed beneath a hurricane, as if the sea itself were alive with electricity. The same storm that tears apart cities above also paints glowing ribbons beneath the waves, uniting destruction and beauty in one impossible moment. Weather, in all its fury, touches every layer of the planet, from the highest reaches of the atmosphere to the darkest depths of the ocean. Over time, weather doesn't just move, it sculpts. Rain, wind, and ice are nature's chisels, carving mountains into valleys, softening peaks, and reshaping continents grain by grain. Water seeps into cracks in the stone, freezes, and expands, splitting rock apart. Rivers grind away at cliffs, cutting canyons so vast they seem the work of giants. Wind sweeps deserts, carrying sand that polishes and scours rock faces into smooth curves. Even the tallest mountains are not safe from this patient work. The Himalayas rise from tectonic power, yet weather constantly wages a slow war against their heights, grinding summits down as fast as Earth can lift them. The landscape we see today, the gentle slopes, the green valleys, the fertile plains, are all weather's artwork, sculpted by the persistent touch of rain and wind. Without erosion, Earth would be jagged and severe, a planet of sharp edges. Instead, it is the dance of atmosphere and time that gives our world its grace. In deserts, the wind becomes an artist in its own right. Carrying grains of sand like countless chisels, it etches stone into shapes that seem the work of dreamers. Arches that frame the horizon, slender spires rising toward the sun, mushroom-like pillars that balance impossibly on narrow stems. These forms, seen in Utah, the Sahara, or Australia, are monuments to patience. Over centuries, the wind carves away soft layers, leaving harder rock behind, until the landscape resembles a gallery of nature's own sculptures. To walk among them is to wander through an open-air museum, where each curve and hollow is a signature of the invisible artist, the air itself, always moving, always creating. Sometimes, weather leaves its mark in more sudden, fiery strokes. When lightning strikes sandy soil, the heat is so immense that it fuses grains of quartz into glass. The result is a delicate branching structure called a fulgurite, a fossil of lightning, formed in a heartbeat. These glassy tubes stretch underground, hollow and twisted, their walls rippled like frozen waves. Each one is a record of a single bolt, a perfect imprint of the sky's touch upon the earth. Holding a fulgurite is like holding the memory of a storm, solidified and silent, proof that even light can leave a mark upon stone. Yet even where the land freezes, weather continues to move. Glaciers, though they appear still, are rivers of ice that flow with slow determination, reshaping entire continents. They carve valleys, drag boulders, and leave behind smooth plains and lakes where mountains once stood. Beneath their weight, the crust of the earth bends. Beneath their melt, rivers roar. As glaciers retreat, they reveal new worlds, soil that has not seen the sky in thousands of years, rocks polished to a sheen, and water so clear it seems to hold the memory of the ice itself. In the far north, glaciers calve into the sea, releasing icebergs that drift for years before melting, their journey a slow farewell to the frozen ages that shaped our planet. The atmosphere, too, holds its long memory. Ash from ancient eruptions, dust from vanished deserts, salt from dried seas, all swirl together, circling the globe, whispering of worlds that came before. A volcanic mountain's eruption can alter sunlight, while a dry desert's breath can feed a rainforest half a world away. Fire gives rise to clouds, clouds give birth to rain, rain feeds the rivers that return to the sea. Each part of the planet speaks to every other part through weather, a continuous exchange of energy and matter. Even the storms we dread carry life forward. Floods deposit fertile soil across plains, winds scatter seeds beyond forests, lightning splits nitrogen in the air, feeding plants. In every flash of destruction lies the seed of renewal. The more we study weather, the more it resembles a living being, restless, creative, unpredictable, and yet bound by rhythm. There are the fiery moods of volcanoes, the icy breath of polar vortices, the luminous whispers of bioluminescent seas, and the slow patience of glaciers grinding continents to sand. There are clouds born of fire and dust, and winds that sculpt stone like silk. Together they compose Earth's endless narrative, one written not in words but in water, air, and light. Every droplet of rain, Every gust of wind, every storm that rolls across the horizon is part of a story billions of years in the making, a story that links the mountain and the sea, the desert and the forest, the past and the present. And when the storm finally passes, when lightning fades and the rain gives way to silence, the world is left changed but still breathing, renewed, washed clean. The scent that rises from wet earth, petrichor, is the perfume of rebirth, a reminder that weather's power is never just to destroy but also to restore. The same sky that can unleash volcano ash or polar wind can also paint a rainbow, frost a meadow, or scatter morning light through dewdrops. All of it belongs to the same endless cycle. From the calmest dawn mist to the most violent hurricane, weather is Earth's voice, soft at times, thunderous at others, speaking the language of transformation. And as we watch clouds drift or listen to rain on a quiet night, we are, in some small way, hearing the planet dream. From the shifting deserts where rain rarely falls to the lush plains that burst to life after storms, weather has always been the invisible hand guiding the movement of life on Earth. And nowhere is that seen more dramatically than in the endless march of locust swarms. Born from cycles of drought and rain, these creatures rise in shimmering clouds that darken the sky, each tiny body fluttering in rhythm with billions of others, carried by the wind's soft command. To stand in their path is to witness the atmosphere's influence made visible in countless wings, an undulating, living cloud that hums like a low heartbeat across the desert air. Each locust alone is fragile, no heavier than a paper petal, but together they become a force as mighty as a storm. Rainfall awakens the dry earth, and the brief abundance of green transforms them into travelers of necessity. Guided by shifting winds and rising heat, they cross borders and seas, their flight a reflection of the weather itself, unpredictable, vast, and unstoppable. When the skies clear and the rains return, their numbers fade, leaving behind silence and the faint shimmer of wings scattered in the sand. Yet their memory endures in ancient tales, where farmers once looked to the heavens, knowing that the same sky that brought rain could also bring ruin. Beneath those same skies, far away from desert winds, another world waits under the sea, the coral reefs, shimmering rainbows of life sculpted by the warmth of sunlit waters. But even here, where every color of the ocean dances, the balance between life and temperature is fragile. Corals live in partnership with microscopic algae, invisible companions that feed them, color them, and keep them alive. When the sea grows too warm, that harmony breaks, and the coral expels its tiny partners in distress. The once vivid reef turns pale, its colors fading to ghostly white in an event known as bleaching. What was once a bustling underwater city falls silent, fish drift away, anemones wither, and the coral bones remain, still and bright as moonlit stone. From space, satellites see these pale scars spreading across the ocean's surface like whispers of sorrow beneath the waves. Yet even in loss, there is resilience. When cooler currents return and balance is restored, color slowly creeps back into the reef, as though the sea itself is breathing life again. To watch coral bleach is to glimpse the ocean's heartbeat falter and recover, a quiet reminder that weather, even when unseen, touches everything from the desert winds to the smallest polyp under the tide. Long before satellites, long before thermometers or radar, weather had already written itself into the story of humankind. Civilizations rose beneath generous skies and fell beneath clouds that refused to rain. History, though told through kings and battles, is also a story of climate. Ancient rivers once fed empires, and when those waters dried, entire worlds unraveled. In the sun-baked plains of Mesopotamia, droughts silenced the Akkadian Empire, turning fertile land to dust. Farther east, the great cities of the Indus Valley faded when monsoons shifted away, leaving crops to wither and trade routes to vanish beneath blowing sand. These weren't the sudden storms of destruction, but slow, patient unravelings, a tapestry of life undone by skies that withheld their gift. Every ruin, every empty field and buried wall, holds the echo of vanished rains. To walk through them is to feel the memory of weather, not as violence, but as silence. In the jungles of Central America, The Maya once watched the heavens with awe, charting planets and stars with mathematical precision, their temples aligned with the paths of the sun. But even their mastery could not command the sky. Sediment deep in ancient lakes and the limestone hearts of caves tell of a drought that stretched for decades, a slow, merciless drying that withered crops and emptied reservoirs. Without water, cities fell quiet, their grand plazas overtaken by vines and roots. The people endured, they adapted, they moved, they survived, but their empire dissolved like mist in morning light. The air itself had rewritten their destiny. The thought that something as soft and formless as air could topple walls of stone reminds us that weather has always been both artist and eraser in the story of Earth. Even war, the most human of endeavors, has often bowed to the will of the weather. In 1588, when the Spanish Armada sailed to invade England, its fate was not sealed by cannon fire, but by a storm, a furious sweep of wind and wave that shattered the fleet before it ever reached its enemy. Centuries earlier, the Mongol Emperor Kublai Khan's attempt to conquer Japan was destroyed by typhoons so fierce the survivors named them kamikaze, divine winds. And so weather became both shield and sword, saving one nation, humbling another. Napoleon's retreat from Russia was not defeated by men, but by the relentless cold of winter, frost so deep it turned soldiers to statues beneath a pale sun. Even in the modern age, the sky remains the quiet commander. During World War II, meteorologists found a brief, fragile pause between storms that allowed the D-Day landings to proceed. One wrong forecast could have changed history itself. The atmosphere is impartial. It takes no side, fights for no banner, yet its breath decides the course of empires. There was a time when winters themselves deepened into something far colder than memory. Between the 14th and 19th centuries, the world slipped into what we now call the Little Ice Age, a long shiver through history. Rivers froze solid, crops failed, and frost crept into every corner of life. In London, the River Thames turned to ice thick enough to hold festivals, frost fairs where tents and fires and laughter filled the frozen river. Painters of the time captured the strange joy of it. Skaters gliding between boats locked in place, merchants selling goods atop the ice, the air crisp and bright with the breath of winter. In the Netherlands, canals froze so often that skating became a national pastime, immortalized in art and song. The cold reshaped culture itself, reminding humanity that climate is not a background condition, but a living rhythm, capable of rewriting how we eat, celebrate, and dream. The causes were many: volcanic ash dimming the sun, faint solar cycles, changing currents in the sea. But the result was universal, the reminder that even slight shifts in temperature can ripple through centuries of human life. And as the centuries warmed again, humanity began to build upward, reaching toward the clouds that once shaped their fate. Yet in doing so, we changed the air around us. Step from a shaded park into a city center on a summer afternoon, and you may feel as if you've entered another climate entirely. Streets of asphalt and walls of glass absorb the sun's heat, holding it long after dusk. Cities become islands of warmth, glowing softly against the cooler countryside. Scientists call this the urban heat island effect, but to those who live within it, it feels like a new kind of season, one built by human hands. The hum of air conditioners, the gleam of rooftops, the still air trapped between towers, all merge to raise the temperature, turning nights restless and bright. Some cities now fight back with gardens on rooftops, trees along roadsides, and paints that reflect the sun. Yet even this modern warmth is a whisper of weather, reshaped, reflected, and amplified by the geometry of human ambition. High above, skyscrapers stir the wind. Air that once flowed freely across open plains now meets walls of steel, bending, twisting, and rushing through narrow streets like invisible rivers. Stand at the base of one of these giants, and the gusts can be startling. Sudden bursts of air that tug at coats and umbrellas, funneling down from the heights where clouds drift. These urban winds are accidents of architecture, reminders that even our tallest structures exist within the vast, breathing body of the atmosphere. To look up at their mirrored sides is to see the sky reflected back, not conquered, but transformed. As day fades, weather reveals its beauty in ways both familiar and strange. A sunset, for instance, is not just the end of light but a performance shaped by air itself. Sometimes the horizon burns with impossible colors, crimson, violet, and molten gold, and though we call it beautiful, it is also a sign of what drifts unseen above us. Dust, ash, and tiny particles scatter the shorter blue light of day, letting the deep reds pass through. After great volcanic eruptions, the skies have glowed with colors so vivid they seem otherworldly, the sun's last light bouncing through veils of suspended ash. Even pollution, harmful though it is, can paint the evening sky in wild hues, turning the fading day into a quiet symphony of chemistry and light. Every sunset is a collaboration between the sun and the air, a living painting brushed anew each night. And in our search to understand, to harness, even to shape the weather itself, humanity has turned its gaze upward once more. In dry regions, where fields crack and rivers shrink, scientists have learned to seed clouds with fine particles, silver iodide or dry ice, that encourage water droplets to gather and rain to fall. It is a delicate art, half science and half hope, an attempt to persuade the sky to share its gifts. Sometimes it works, sometimes not, but the effort itself is telling. We no longer merely endure the weather, we converse with it, experimenting, coaxing, dreaming. To send a plane through the clouds with a trail of silver is to reach out to the atmosphere not as a master but as a partner, a recognition that, from the smallest droplet to the grandest storm, weather is a dialogue between earth and sky, between time and life, between us and the air that cradles every breath. Water vapor condenses, helping droplets grow large enough to fall as rain, each bead of moisture born from the invisible breath of clouds drifting across the open sky. Within these towering forms, experiments of nature unfold silently. Droplets collide, merge, and separate in a cycle older than time itself. To understand rain is to listen to the patient chemistry of the atmosphere. Scientists have long dreamed of guiding this process, coaxing clouds to yield their water in places struck by drought. This dream became a practice known as cloud seeding, a kind of atmospheric persuasion where planes or ground generators release tiny particles, often silver iodide or dry ice, into the sky. These particles serve as anchors for moisture, allowing vapor to crystallize and become rain. Since the mid-20th century, nations from China to the United States to the United Arab Emirates have turned to the clouds with cautious hope. Results are subtle, sometimes a few extra millimeters of rainfall, sometimes none at all, but each attempt reminds us how delicately balanced weather is. Even the smallest shift can ripple through the vast web of air currents and temperature gradients that circle our world. To imagine humans sending silver dust into a cloud is to picture a brief collaboration between earthbound intention and skyborne mystery, an experiment written in vapor and wind. The atmosphere has long been our teacher, whispering patterns that ancient observers captured in simple proverbs. Red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky in morning, sailors take warning. Beneath its rhyme lies real science. When the setting sun paints the west in crimson, it signals dry, stable air drifting in from afar, a promise of clear weather to come. But a red dawn means that same stable air has moved eastward, leaving moisture and turbulence behind. The hues we admire are messages from the sky itself, shaped by the scattering of sunlight through dust and water droplets. Long before satellites watched from orbit, farmers and travelers lifted their eyes and read these colors as forecasts written in fire. Every shade of twilight carries data, the size of particles in the air, the path of the wind, the hidden pulse of pressure moving unseen above the horizon. From such daily signs to rare spectacles, the atmosphere reveals its artistry most vividly in rainbows. Each one begins with a simple act of geometry inside a falling raindrop. Sunlight enters, slows, bends, reflects from the drop's inner surface, and bends again as it exits, separating into bands of color. The rainbow we see is only half of a greater whole, a perfect circle of light. The ground hides the rest, but pilots have seen it from above, entire luminous rings hovering over clouds like gates of color. To realize that the familiar arc is merely the visible edge of a full halo changes how we see it, not as an ending but as a window into something complete and continuous. Sometimes the sky grows generous and gives us two at once. The double rainbow appears when light reflects twice within each droplet. The second reflection sends the spectrum back at a wider angle, reversing the order of colors, red inside, violet outside. Between the two arches lies a darker band where fewer rays meet the eye, a quiet boundary called Alexander's band. The sight feels otherworldly, as though the sky has opened to show layered dimensions of light. Scientists describe the physics easily enough, yet when a double rainbow spans the air after a storm, even those who know the equations often stand wordless, humbled by the precision and beauty of simple refraction multiplied upon itself. In colder air, sunlight finds new instruments. Tiny hexagonal ice crystals drifting high above form halos, parhelia, and sundogs, mirrors in the winter sky. When the sun sits low, two bright fragments may appear beside it, sparkling like phantom companions. These are sundogs, born when the light bends through the icy prisms of cirrus clouds. Sometimes faint, sometimes dazzling, they can mimic the sun itself, creating the illusion of three burning orbs suspended in the chill. To those who saw them in ages past, they were omens of power. To us, they are demonstrations of how geometry reigns even in chaos. Each crystal turns light by exactly 22 degrees, and together they draw halos so precise that mathematicians could trace the angle without ever glancing upward. Water vapor condenses, helping droplets grow large enough to fall as rain, each bead of moisture born from the invisible breath of clouds drifting across the open sky. Within these towering forms, experiments of nature unfold silently. Droplets collide, merge, and separate in a cycle older than time itself. To understand rain is to listen to the patient chemistry of the atmosphere. Scientists have long dreamed of guiding this process, coaxing clouds to yield their water in places struck by drought. This dream became a practice known as cloud seeding, a kind of atmospheric persuasion where planes or ground generators release tiny particles, often silver iodide or dry ice, into the sky. These particles serve as anchors for moisture, allowing vapor to crystallize and become rain. Since the mid-20th century, nations from China to the United States to the United Arab Emirates have turned to the clouds with cautious hope. Results are subtle, sometimes a few extra millimeters of rainfall, sometimes none at all, but each attempt reminds us how delicately balanced weather is. Even the smallest shift can ripple through the vast web of air currents and temperature gradients that circle our world. To imagine humans sending silver dust into a cloud is to picture a brief collaboration between earthbound intention and skyborne mystery, an experiment written in vapor and wind. The atmosphere has long been our teacher, whispering patterns that ancient observers captured in simple proverbs. Red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky in morning, sailors take warning. Beneath its rhyme lies real science. When the setting sun paints the west in crimson, it signals dry, stable air drifting in from afar, a promise of clear weather to come. But a red dawn means that same stable air has moved eastward, leaving moisture and turbulence behind. The hues we admire are messages from the sky itself, shaped by the scattering of sunlight through dust and water droplets. Long before satellites watched from orbit, farmers and travelers lifted their eyes and read these colors as forecasts written in fire. Every shade of twilight carries data, the size of particles in the air, the path of the wind, the hidden pulse of pressure moving unseen above the horizon. From such daily signs to rare spectacles, the atmosphere reveals its artistry most vividly in rainbows. Each one begins with a simple act of geometry inside a falling raindrop. Sunlight enters, slows, bends, reflects from the drop's inner surface, and bends again as it exits, separating into bands of color. The rainbow we see is only half of a greater whole, a perfect circle of light. The ground hides the rest, but pilots have seen it from above, entire luminous rings hovering over clouds like gates of color. To realize that the familiar arc is merely the visible edge of a full halo changes how we see it, not as an ending but as a window into something complete and continuous. Sometimes the sky grows generous and gives us two at once. The double rainbow appears when light reflects twice within each droplet. The second reflection sends the spectrum back at a wider angle, reversing the order of colors, red inside, violet outside. Between the two arches lies a darker band where fewer rays meet the eye, a quiet boundary called Alexander's band. The sight feels otherworldly, as though the sky has opened to show layered dimensions of light. Scientists describe the physics easily enough, yet when a double rainbow spans the air after a storm, even those who know the equations often stand wordless, humbled by the precision and beauty of simple refraction multiplied upon itself. In colder air, sunlight finds new instruments. Tiny hexagonal ice crystals drifting high above form halos, parhelia, and sundogs, mirrors in the winter sky. When the sun sits low, two bright fragments may appear beside it, sparkling like phantom companions. These are sundogs, born when the light bends through the icy prisms of cirrus clouds. Sometimes faint, sometimes dazzling, they can mimic the sun itself, creating the illusion of three burning orbs suspended in the chill. To those who saw them in ages past, they were omens of power. To us, they are demonstrations of how geometry reigns even in chaos. Each crystal turns light by exactly 22 degrees, and together they draw halos so precise that mathematicians could trace the angle without ever glancing upward. At night, the same phenomenon belongs to the moon. A pale ring may encircle it, delicate and ghost-like, formed by ice far higher than any mountain peak. These halos often precede a change in weather, a soft warning from the upper air that moisture is on the move. To walk beneath such a moon is to feel both small and included, as though one stands inside a perfect circle drawn across the sky's vast page. The light seems to hum with quiet geometry, a harmony between water, crystal, and wavelength. Yet the atmosphere also has a playful side. On shimmering hot days, it becomes a trickster, bending light into illusions that fool even careful eyes. A mirage appears where no water lies, perhaps on a desert plain or the asphalt of a long road, rippling like a silver lake that retreats as you approach. The cause is simple. Layers of air near the ground differ in temperature, and light passing through them curves upward. The brain, accustomed to straight lines, interprets the bent path as reflection, conjuring the illusion of water. Ancient travelers chased these phantoms across dunes. Modern drivers see them every summer, unaware they are witnessing physics at work in motionless air. Mirages are reminders that perception is only a translation of light, and that the atmosphere constantly edits what we see. In colder regions, a rarer optical enchantment occurs, the superior mirage. Over icy seas or snow-covered tundra, when a band of warm air lies above colder layers, light bends downward, lifting images above the horizon. Ships appear to float in the sky, islands stretch upward like towers of glass, entire coastlines double upon themselves in silent reflection. Sailors once swore they had seen ghost fleets, vessels hanging in midair. Today we know the cause, yet the wonder remains untouched. The sky acts as a lens, sculpting the horizon into visions that seem half real, half dream, showing how the laws of refraction can mimic the imagination itself. Even at the edges of day, the air plays its quiet tricks. As the sun slips below the horizon, a rare green spark may flash for the briefest instant. It is the final whisper of light filtered through thick layers of atmosphere, the moment when blue and violet scatter away, leaving a short, pure burst of emerald. The green flash lasts scarcely a heartbeat, visible only when the air is perfectly clear and the sea horizon sharp. Those who have seen it describe it as a secret exchange between sun and ocean, a tiny flare that seals the day. Science explains it neatly, but explanation does not exhaust wonder. Rather, it deepens it, showing that even ordinary sunlight hides surprises for those patient enough to watch. When the full moon rises after a storm, it sometimes paints its own rainbow, faint, colorless to the naked eye yet real. These moonbows form from the same process as their daytime cousins, but with light so dim that our eyes perceive only silver. Long exposure cameras reveal the hidden hues, pale blues, muted reds, ghostly greens. To stand beneath a moonbow is to feel that night itself has learned how to smile. The world becomes quieter under its arc, as though the rain has softened not just the ground but time itself. The air, though transparent, is never still. It hums with invisible electricity. Deep within thunderclouds, collisions between ice particles and droplets separate charges, building tension until a channel of light bridges sky and earth. Lightning moves faster than thought, yet in slow motion it looks alive, a branching tree of fire seeking balance. Each bolt heats the air to tens of thousands of degrees, creating a shockwave we hear as thunder. Sometimes the discharge leaps not downward but outward, flashing across clouds as sheet lightning, or flickering silently within distant storms as heat lightning on summer nights. Above the clouds, rarer still, are sprites and blue jets, tendrils of light that burst towards space, brief as sighs yet visible from hundreds of kilometers away. Astronauts have watched them dance above storms, reminders that even our tallest mountains stand far below the true reach of weather. Every flash, every drop, every shifting color is part of an immense conversation between sunlight, water, air, and earth. We live inside this conversation, though we often forget it. When fog curls across valleys before dawn, it too is the voice of weather speaking softly. Each droplet in that mist is smaller than a hair, yet together they veil entire landscapes, scattering light into whiteness. Sometimes the fog gives birth to its own rainbow, a fog bow, wide, pale, and ghostly, its colors so muted they seem woven from moonlight rather than day. The fogbow's circle, almost pure white, feels like a spirit of the rainbow, a whisper instead of a shout. Sailors once called it a sea dog, appearing before them on calm mornings, an omen of peace after storm. Fog, like silence, invites reflection. It reminds us that visibility is not the same as understanding, that the world remains vast even when hidden from view. And when the fog lifts, revealing mountains, rivers, or the glittering roofs of a city, it feels as though the planet itself has taken a long, slow breath. The sky clears not with drama but with grace. Sometimes the air performs on smaller stages. Over tropical islands, fleeting rain showers form and vanish within minutes. Over mountain valleys, lenticular clouds stack like discs, smooth and still while the wind races unseen around them. Over open plains, dust devils twirl in the afternoon sun, spinning columns that rise and dissolve as quickly as they appear. Every pattern, each puff of cumulus, each wisp of cirrus, is a fingerprint of the conditions that shaped it. To watch clouds is to read an ever-changing story of evaporation and condensation, of temperature and pressure, of sunlight sculpting vapor into transient architecture. Lightning, too, writes its momentary calligraphy across that canvas. Beyond the familiar bolts that split the air, there exist phenomena so rare that few ever witness them: red sprites, blue jets, elves, and halos that leap from the tops of storms toward the edge of space. Sprites bloom like crimson jellyfish above thunderheads, vast but faint, their light lasting less than a blink. Blue jets shoot upward in narrow cones, reaching heights where the atmosphere thins into darkness. For centuries these flashes went unseen or disbelieved, yet they are as real as the thunder below, the upper atmospheric cousins of the storms we know. They remind us that weather is not confined to the clouds we see. It stretches far beyond, connecting troposphere to ionosphere in a web of plasma and light. Then, when the night has quieted and the world rests again, the atmosphere shows its gentlest face. Dew forms on blades of grass as the ground cools, each droplet a perfect lens reflecting the dawn to come. The air becomes still enough to hear distant things, the rustle of leaves, the heartbeat of insects, the faint hum of electricity carried on damp wires. This serenity, this pause between changing states, is the calm of dawn's skies. Long before the first rays reach the horizon, a faint band of blue appears opposite the sun's rising place, the Earth's shadow, cast upon its own atmosphere. Above it glows the belt of Venus, a blush of rose and lavender that marks the thin line where night meets day. To those awake early enough to see it, this gradient of color feels like the planet breathing, exhaling light after the long inhale of darkness. As daylight strengthens, clouds begin their slow procession once more. Some tower into cumulus giants, others spread thin like silk, tracing invisible rivers of moisture that travel across continents. The same processes that shape local weather also drive the planet's climate, binding every gust and raindrop into the grand cycle of energy moving from sun to sea to sky to soil and back again. From the smallest eddy of wind curling behind a stone to the vast oscillations of El Niño and La Niña altering global patterns, the atmosphere is a single living system. Each breath we take was once part of a storm, a sigh of the ocean, a whisper of a cloud. And so, as evening returns and the first stars emerge, the day's warmth begins to rise again, carrying with it traces of our breath, our fires, our ocean's sighs. The sky glows with the last colors of scattering, amber fading into indigo, and somewhere, perhaps over a distant mountain, a faint rumble reminds us that thunder never sleeps. Weather is not merely background, it is the pulse of a living planet, an endless interplay of forces shaping everything we see and feel. To lie beneath that sky, listening to wind move through trees or rain tapping softly against the window, is to sense a connection older than language. Each gust, each droplet, each shimmer of light is part of a continuous experiment in balance. The atmosphere does not judge, it simply responds, adjusting, adapting, forever seeking harmony. And when the storm passes, when clouds part and the moon returns to cast its silver calm across the quiet world, we remember that we are made of the same elements that drift above us. The hydrogen that fuels the sun, the oxygen that feeds the flame, the carbon that traces its way through leaf and lung, all belong to one great cycle of renewal. So tonight, as you close your eyes and drift towards sleep, imagine that you are floating high within that luminous ocean of air. Feel the temperature drop with altitude, the whisper of wind sliding past invisible currents, the steady hum of a planet alive beneath you. Around you, the world's weather continues its endless symphony, clouds forming, rain falling, snow glittering under polar moons, lightning blooming in the tropics, fog wrapping harbors in velvet silence. Above it all, the auroras shimmer like dreamlight across the poles, and the first rays of tomorrow's sun wait patiently beyond the curve of Earth. Let the thought settle that every breeze has traveled through countless stories before reaching you, that the air itself remembers mountains, oceans, and storms. It is ancient, recycled starlight and ocean breath combined, carrying whispers from places you may never see. In that awareness lies peace, the kind that comes when science meets wonder, when knowledge deepens awe instead of replacing it. The weather is not just something that happens to us, it is the breath of our world, the poetry of physics written across the sky, and the gentle cradle that rocks us, night after night, into the rhythm of sleep. Rainbows are arcs of light born from the marriage of sunlight and rain, yet sometimes, under the gentler watch of the moon, their pale cousins shimmer into being, moonbows, or lunar rainbows, painted not in blazing hues but in whispers of silver. They form when moonlight bends through raindrops at night, a phenomenon so rare and delicate that it feels like an illusion, a dream suspended in mist. The moon's light, faint compared to the sun's, scatters too softly for our eyes to catch its full spectrum, so what we see is a ghostly arc, a bridge of white suspended between storm and starlight. Only cameras with patient lenses reveal their hidden colors, soft blues, faint reds, spectral greens blending like sighs of forgotten light. To see a moonbow is to witness the sky breathing quietly in its sleep, a celestial echo of the day's brightness that refuses to fade entirely. In ancient folklore, they were symbols of calm after emotional storms, omens of balance, or paths for spirits returning to peace. Even now, when science can name every process involved, the angle of refraction, the dispersion of wavelengths, the sight still feels enchanted, as though the moon itself decided to paint softly across the remnants of rain. And beyond the moonbow's glow, storms gather their own strange lights. Lightning, fierce and fleeting, rips through clouds like veins of fire illuminating the pulse of the planet. We often think of lightning as unpredictable, wild, and wandering, but the truth is both humbling and precise. Lightning can strike the same place over and over again. The Empire State Building in New York, for instance, is struck roughly 25 times every year. Mountain peaks, towers, and solitary trees stand as familiar targets to the storm's electric reach, guiding the current down to earth and blazing instant connections between heaven and ground. Lightning follows laws. It searches for the shortest path, the easiest bridge through resistance, obeying physics even as it dazzles the eye. Engineers mimic this truth in the design of lightning rods, providing safe escape routes for the sky's electricity. To see lightning is to glimpse raw physics at play, energy seeking symmetry, chaos shaped by order, a reminder that even nature's fiercest flashes follow invisible rules older than life itself. Yet some lightning refuses to be understood so easily. Ball lightning, those wandering orbs of luminous fire that drift silently through the air, remains one of the atmosphere's great enigmas. Witnesses across centuries have described glowing spheres ranging from tiny pearls of light to globes as large as melons, floating through open fields or along airplane aisles, glowing white or orange, or eerie blue before fading with a hiss or a sharp pop. In one legendary incident from the 1960s, passengers on a flight saw such a glowing sphere drift calmly down the aisle before vanishing in midair. Scientists have proposed countless theories: plasma suspended by magnetic fields, burning vaporized silicon, microscale energy vortices, but none quite capture the mystery. Ball lightning is like a living ghost of electricity, a manifestation of weather's imagination, rare and brief and endlessly debated. To glimpse it is to see the storm dreaming, its fire made gentle for a fleeting heartbeat. High above the clouds, where storms breathe against the edge of space, lightning paints its secret hieroglyphs, sprites and blue jets, the upward lightning, the sky's hidden fireworks. Sprites are vast crimson apparitions that flash silently above thunderheads, so large they can span dozens of miles yet so quick that a blink would miss them. They resemble jellyfish made of electric silk, tendrils reaching downward while halos of red spread across the upper atmosphere. These are not fictions or folklore but realities captured by sensitive cameras and astronauts' eyes, lightning reaching upward instead of down, drawn by disturbances in the air's electric field. Blue jets, their rarer cousins, shoot from the tops of storm clouds toward the stratosphere, narrow cones of azure light piercing the darkness. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station have seen them firsthand, luminous spears racing upward, connecting Earth's storms to the heavens beyond. Together, sprites and jets reveal an invisible truth: the weather we see is only part of the story. Above every thunderstorm lies another realm, where the air glows faintly with electricity, where the boundaries between Earth and space blur in ephemeral light. Even deeper, below the storms and rainbows, the Earth itself sometimes becomes a storm. When volcanoes erupt, the sky above them explodes not only with ash and fire but with lightning. As particles of ash, dust, and rock collide inside the towering plume, they build up static charges, unleashing bolts that crackle across the darkened sky. These volcanic tempests are both terrifying and mesmerizing: rivers of molten rock below, veins of electricity above, two elements dancing in furious harmony. Whole mountainsides flash with fire while the clouds above shimmer with violet light, an otherworldly glow seen by those close enough to feel the mountain's trembling heart. Scientists call it volcanic lightning, but the name hardly captures the spectacle. It is nature's double storm, earth and sky conspiring in a single act of creation and destruction. Within that chaos lies beauty, the same physics that fuels a thundercloud finding new expression in the roar of a planet's molten breath. On the scale of worlds, our storms are fleeting whispers. Far beyond Earth, on Jupiter, a single storm, the Great Red Spot, has raged for centuries. Larger than our entire planet, this colossal cyclone spins endlessly, its winds whipping faster than 400 miles per hour. First observed through telescopes more than 300 years ago, it has endured through empires, through inventions, through lifetimes. Its crimson and beige hues swirl like ancient paint, stirred by Jupiter's internal heat and immense pressure. Unlike Earth's hurricanes, which fade as they lose their source of warmth, Jupiter's atmosphere sustains its storms eternally. The red spot shrinks and shifts but does not die, a vast reminder that weather is not a human thing but a cosmic one, a conversation between matter and motion that never ceases. And still stranger, on Saturn's North Pole, spins a storm of impossible geometry, a hexagon, six-sided and perfect, locked in perpetual motion. Discovered by Voyager in the 1980s, this polar storm is larger than Earth, its sides aligned with astonishing symmetry. It is a standing wave in the gas giant's atmosphere, created by differences in wind speed that form a stable pattern, like ripples in a cosmic pond that never fade. Within its edges smaller storms swirl, but the hexagon remains steady, a planetary kaleidoscope turning slowly through the ages. To see it from space is to wonder whether nature has an artist's hand, sketching with invisible wind. Yet even within our world's own skies, wonders as strange exist in miniature. Fog bows, cousins of rainbows, form when sunlight bends through the tiniest of droplets suspended in mist. Too small to separate light into vivid bands, they appear instead as white arcs, pale ghosts of color curving through the fog, glimpsed by sailors at sea or hikers on misty ridges. Sometimes, when the fog glows from behind, the bow encircles your own shadow, creating a glory, a halo of rings around your silhouette, like a private rainbow woven from light and air. Mirages, too, are the atmosphere's tricks of perspective, lakes that shimmer on desert horizons, cities that float above the ocean, ships that appear to sail the sky. On hot days, layers of air bend light upward, turning sky into phantom water. In polar regions, cold air bends light downward, making distant objects rise impossibly above the curve of the earth. These illusions, superior and inferior mirages, remind us that what we see is filtered through layers of invisible motion, that the truth of the world is always shaped by the air between us and it. And somewhere between these extremes lies calm. At dawn, before the heat of day begins to stir the wind, the world rests in a fragile equilibrium. The air is cool, still, and clear. Moisture gathers on leaves as dew, each droplet a lens for the coming sunrise. Birds pause between night and day, their first calls hesitant. In this silence, you can almost hear the slow sigh of the planet's rotation, the quiet transfer of warmth between Earth and sky. The belt of Venus, a soft band of pink and lavender, appears opposite the rising sun, while the Earth's shadow looms faintly above the horizon, a reminder that even the air carries the imprint of our planet's shape. This calm, brief as it is one of the most exquisite states of the atmosphere, neither storm nor stillness, but balance itself. Later, as sunlight grows, heat begins its invisible ascent. Air warms unevenly, currents twist and lift, and clouds start to form, each a product of countless microscopic battles between temperature and humidity. A cloud is never still. It grows, dissipates, reshapes, its edges curl and flatten, sculpted by invisible rivers of air. Some rise into towering thunderheads that flash with internal fire, others drift like silk ribbons across the blue. In every cloud lives a fragment of ocean, a sigh of the forest, a whisper from the mountains, a cycle unbroken for billions of years. This cycle of weather is both local and infinite. It is rain falling into rivers that feed the sea, then rising again as vapor to form clouds that drift and break and fall once more. It is wind flowing from high to low, carrying dust, pollen, seeds, even whispers of faraway fires. It is the quiet persistence of balance and motion, the endless attempt of the atmosphere to even itself out. Yet within that attempt beauty blooms. Lightning flashes, rainbows curve, storms roar, and then, all at once, the sky falls silent again, as if catching its breath. When night returns, the air cools, and invisible patterns begin anew. Temperature inversions trap the scent of earth close to the ground. Fog weaves its slow tendrils through valleys. The moon rises, casting silver mirrors on puddles left by afternoon rain. Somewhere, perhaps over distant mountains, thunder murmurs like a fading memory. Weather never stops, it only changes its rhythm. To lie beneath that vast breathing sky is to sense the pulse of the world itself. From the shimmer of mirages to the geometry of Saturn's storms, from the quiet birth of fog bows to the cosmic persistence of Jupiter's cyclone, every pattern is a signature of balance, a conversation between energy and air. The same sunlight that bends through raindrops also powers hurricanes. The same water that falls as rain may one day freeze into polar snow or rise as tropical vapor. We live inside this dance, part of it, breathing its rhythm with every sigh. So if tonight you listen closely, the whisper of wind, the distant hush of rain, the low hum of the horizon, you may hear what our ancestors once did, not the anger of storms, but the song of motion itself. Weather is not merely a backdrop but the heartbeat of the living earth, its ceaseless voice shaping mountains, feeding rivers, polishing stones, and soothing us into sleep. And as the final drops of rain fade into the soil and the moon paints faint halos around itself, the air, the clouds, and the stars all settle into their endless, wordless conversation, an eternal lullaby, written in light and wind, sung softly across the whole turning world. Water vapor condenses high in the cooling air, forming clouds that drift like breath made visible, soft shapes born from invisible molecules dancing between phases of sky and water. Every droplet is a story, lifted by warmth, cooled by altitude, and drawn back toward Earth in a constant, tender exchange between sea and sky. Through this endless cycle, rainbows are painted across storms and sunlight finds its prism in the air. At night, when the moon takes the sun's place, its gentler light sometimes bends through lingering raindrops to form moonbows, arcs of pale silver that shimmer faintly against darkened skies. Moonbows are rainbows dreamed in grayscale, their colors too faint for human eyes, yet long exposure photographs reveal the truth, a hidden spectrum glimmering in ghostly quiet. To see a moonbow is to witness balance, rain on one horizon, a bright moon low on the other, and stillness in between. Folklore called them bridges of enchantment, paths between worlds, and even now they feel otherworldly, like the sky is whispering softly in its sleep. And then, with a flash, the calm breaks. Lightning can strike the same place not just twice, but dozens of times, defying the old myth. The Empire State Building, for example, is touched by lightning roughly 25 times each year. The energy follows patterns invisible to us but precise to the laws of physics, tracing conductive paths over and over. Tall towers, mountains, or solitary trees become familiar friends to the storm, struck repeatedly, marked by fire and brilliance yet standing still. Lightning is chaos only in appearance. Beneath the spectacle is a language of electrons seeking balance. Engineers learn to listen to that language, shaping rods that invite the strike safely downward, proving that even the storm's fury can be guided by understanding. Yet some lightning defies comprehension altogether. Ball lightning, floating spheres of glowing fire that drift like spirits during storms, appearing for only moments and vanishing with a hiss or a quiet explosion. Witnesses tell stories of glowing orbs wandering down airplane aisles or hovering in living rooms, ephemeral as dreams. No one fully understands them, whether they are plasma, burning vapor, or some exotic electromagnetic phenomenon, but they remain among the most mysterious lights in nature. They seem to drift between science and legend, reminders that not everything bright can be neatly explained. Above the storm tops, far higher than ordinary lightning, another kind of wonder flickers for only a heartbeat, sprites. They flash red in the upper atmosphere like ghostly jellyfish, enormous but brief, stretching upward tens of miles toward the edge of space. Sprites are born when massive lightning discharges below disturb the electric fields above, creating ephemeral blooms of crimson light. Pilots flying through the dark sometimes glimpse them out their windows, delicate and silent, their glow fading before the eye can focus. Cameras capture them as surreal, spectral trees branching into nothingness. Their cousins, blue jets, shoot upward from thunderclouds as narrow cones of azure light, piercing toward the stratosphere. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station have watched them rise from Earth's storms like luminous spears reaching for the stars. These electric marvels remind us that lightning is not bound by the ground. It is a conversation between Earth and space, a pulse running through the veins of the planet's atmosphere. And sometimes, even volcanoes join that dialogue. During eruptions, the sky itself seems to split open as volcanic lightning tears through clouds of ash and smoke. The air crackles with electric fire while molten rock glows beneath, the earth roaring from below, and the heavens flashing above in a fierce duet of light and fury. Scientists know the cause: ash particles colliding and charging, but explanation cannot steal the awe. To see volcanic lightning is to glimpse creation in progress, fire meeting storm, chaos folding into beauty. Across the oceans, storms grow vast enough to shape continents. Typhoon Tip, the most powerful tropical cyclone ever recorded, once spanned nearly half the width of the United States, its winds screaming past 190 miles per hour. From orbit, it looked like a perfect spiral, a planetary fingerprint carved in clouds. And yet, even this was small compared to the tempests of other worlds. On Jupiter, a single storm has raged for at least 3 centuries. The Great Red Spot, a swirling oval wider than Earth itself, its ammonia clouds churned into shades of crimson and gold. Its winds haul faster than any hurricane, its endurance defying time itself. Astronomers watch it slowly evolve, shrinking and shifting in color but never ceasing. On Saturn, a different marvel spins at its pole, a storm shaped not as a circle but a perfect hexagon. This vast geometric pattern, discovered by Voyager in the 1980s, remains locked in place, a frozen whirlpool of math and motion, larger than our planet yet rotating with calm precision. Scientists think it is sculpted by differences in wind speed, a standing wave made visible, turning Saturn's atmosphere into a living kaleidoscope. To gaze upon it is to realize that storms can possess symmetry, that even chaos can take the shape of art. Farther still, Uranus and Neptune whirl with unimaginable energy beneath their tranquil hues. Uranus, pale blue-green and seemingly serene, hides jet streams that rage faster than the speed of sound on Earth, winds screaming at 1,200 miles per hour through hydrogen and methane skies. Neptune's gales are fiercer still, with supersonic hurricanes reaching 1,300 miles per hour, swirling through the cold darkness at the edge of the solar system. When Voyager 2 flew past, it saw a great dark spot, an immense vortex of shadow, beautiful and deadly, shifting across the planet's face before vanishing years later, only to reform anew. These storms are born of the same physics as ours: pressure, heat, and rotation, but unleashed on scales we can scarcely imagine. And beyond even those worlds, some exoplanets orbiting distant suns experience weather that borders on the unreal. There are planets where glass rains sideways, driven by winds of 4,000 miles per hour, shards of silica hurled through the atmosphere in glittering torrents. There are others so close to their stars that iron vaporizes into the air, condensing later as droplets of molten metal that fall like fiery rain. Imagine standing beneath a sky where the storm's raindrops glow red as they cool, a place both deadly and dazzling. These alien climates remind us that weather is not unique to Earth but a universal song sung in different keys, each planet composing its own melody of wind and fire. Yet Earth, our home, has changed its own song many times. Billions of years ago, its skies were not blue but orange, heavy with volcanic gases. Methane, carbon dioxide, and ammonia shrouded the young planet, turning sunlight into a dim haze and seas into simmering cauldrons where early life stirred. Slowly, microscopic organisms began releasing oxygen, transforming the air, clearing the haze, and painting the heavens blue for the first time. The ozone layer formed like an invisible shield, and under that new sky, life spread and diversified. Deep within glaciers today, tiny bubbles of that ancient air remain trapped, time capsules sealed for millennia. Scientists drill ice cores and free the breath of long-lost ages, measuring carbon dioxide, oxygen, and methane to reconstruct the planet's past moods. Each layer of ice is a memory, of warm centuries and ice-bound epochs, of forests advancing and glaciers retreating. To hold such ice is to cradle Earth's history in one's hands, a fragment of atmosphere preserved in crystal, a whisper from the prehistoric sky. This dance of air and life is woven through the carbon cycle, a vast and delicate network connecting the ocean, the soil, the forests, and the clouds. Carbon dioxide moves between them like a slow breath, drawn in by leaves, released by fire and decay, carried by wind, and absorbed again by rain. Volcanoes exhale it, oceans store it, mountains and roots quietly balance it. Weather, in its every form, participates in this cycle. Storms stirring carbon into the sea, rainfall washing it through rivers, sunlight feeding the green machinery of photosynthesis. The balance of these flows sets the tone for the planet's climate, for the warmth or chill that defines eras. And within that balance, clouds play their dual role, shields and blankets at once. By day, they reflect sunlight, cooling the earth. By night, they trap warmth, keeping the surface from freezing. High cirrus clouds veil the stars and retain heat, while low, thick cumulus clouds brighten the days by bouncing light back into space. Without them, our days would burn and our nights would freeze. Each drifting cloud, ephemeral as it seems, helps regulate the delicate temperature of the living world, holding a quiet equilibrium between fire and frost. As the climate shifts, the polar ice responds first. When sea ice melts, it exposes dark ocean water that absorbs sunlight instead of reflecting it. This amplifies warming, alters wind patterns, and changes ocean currents that travel across the globe, influencing even faraway weather. Storm tracks shift, rains wander, droughts deepen. The planet's systems are intertwined, a single organism breathing through wind and wave. Yet amid all this motion, calm still exists, the kind of stillness that follows a storm or greets the first light of dawn. At that hour, fog often curls across the ground, a soft mist born when cooling air meets warm, moist earth. Within it, sunlight bends and scatters to form halos or faint fog bows, pale, ghostly arcs of light that shimmer white instead of colored, too delicate to be caught for long. Occasionally, on quiet mornings, mirages shimmer on the horizon, distant lakes that vanish as you approach, born from layers of warm and cool air bending light into illusion. At sea, sailors once called them false lands, and travelers in deserts chased them for days, believing water waited ahead. Yet these tricks of light are not deceptions, but gifts of physics, showing us that even reality itself ripples when the air begins to dream. Sometimes, when conditions are perfect, the moon itself casts a rainbow, a moonbow so faint it seems to hover at the edge of vision, its colors washed into silver. Other nights bring halos of ice crystals around the moon, or pillars of light rising from frozen air. In the highest storms, lightning sprites and blue jets whisper their electric messages into the edge of space, unseen by most. Farther north and south, the auroras bloom, where charged particles from the sun collide with the atmosphere and paint the sky in veils of green, pink, and violet light. They ripple like living curtains, silent yet vibrant, connecting our world to the cosmic breath beyond. And then, after the spectacle, comes the quiet again, the gentle glow before sunrise, when clouds blush with the first hint of gold, when the world seems to inhale before waking. The story of weather is the story of motion, of energy made visible, of balance found and lost and found again. From glass rain on distant planets to fog bows over sleepy meadows, from volcanic lightning to the hush of dawn, it is all part of one vast rhythm, the same rhythm that shapes life, memory, and time. Each gust, each droplet, each flicker of light across the heavens is a reminder that the air above us is alive, forever changing yet endlessly familiar. Ice, the atmosphere shifts, sometimes pushing cold Arctic air farther south in winter or changing rainfall patterns elsewhere. The melting also disrupts ecosystems, affecting animals like polar bears and seals that depend on ice to survive. Sea ice is not just frozen water, it is a vital heartbeat in Earth's great climate engine, breathing in rhythm with the turning of seasons. Its annual cycle of growth and retreat helps drive the grand circulations of both ocean and sky, and when it weakens, the balance of the entire planet wavers. Watching it recede is like watching a cog in the world's machinery slow down, altering how everything moves in subtle but powerful ways. Weather everywhere feels the tremor of this change, from distant coasts to inland valleys. As climate warms, extreme weather grows less rare and more familiar, reshaping what we once thought of as the ordinary moods of the sky. Around the globe, scientists record new highs and lows, the atmosphere writing a more volatile story year after year. Heat waves stretch longer, wildfires burn farther, hurricanes roar louder, and floods strike with a suddenness that feels almost alive. The warming air acts as a loaded dice, favoring extremes. It holds more moisture, fuels stronger storms, and releases its power in ways that surprise even seasoned observers. What was once rare now feels seasonal. Yet beneath the anxiety of these changes lies a truth as old as the sky itself. Weather and life are bound together, and every gust of wind or fall of rain is part of a single, breathing system. The warmth rising from our cities, the carbon released from our fires, the forests that inhale and exhale across continents, all are threads in the same woven atmosphere. The climate we shape returns its story to us through the language of weather. Storm surges, for instance, are the sea's translation of the atmosphere's strength. When a hurricane or typhoon makes landfall, its winds are not always the greatest danger. It is the surge, the vast heave of water drawn up by pressure and pushed forward by wind, that strikes hardest. These walls of ocean can climb several meters high, swallowing coasts and erasing shorelines that once seemed permanent. As sea levels rise, each storm begins from a higher starting point, allowing surges to reach further inland, flooding cities that once stood safe. The image from above is haunting, the sea appearing to rise and walk upon the land, its blue-green body reclaiming space grain by grain. For coastal dwellers, these floods are no longer distant forecasts. They are part of lived memory, proof that the dialogue between air and ocean has grown more intense. Heat waves, too, have found new strength in this changing world. Once thought of as occasional discomforts, they now linger like heavy veils draped across continents, refusing to lift even at night. Across cities, the dark no longer cools but traps warmth among walls and asphalt, turning every breath into an effort. Crops wither, rivers recede, and the hum of air conditioners becomes the background music of survival. Scientists call them the quiet killers, for heat waves claim more lives globally than any other weather event. The air seems still, but within that stillness lies the relentless pulse of trapped energy, a reminder that warmth, when confined, can be as deadly as cold. Yet even in this, patterns emerge. Urban planners and climatologists map these heat islands, tracing how concrete, metal, and glass amplify the sun's gift until it becomes a burden. They see how trees, parks, and reflective surfaces might one day help cities breathe again. In the quiet logic of science, hope still glows. Rainfall, meanwhile, is shifting in its choreography. The rhythm that once defined seasons now falters, redrawing the boundaries of wet and dry across the globe. Monsoons arrive late or early, gentle rains turn to deluge, and dry regions stretch further each year. Where once there were steady showers feeding rivers and crops, now there may be weeks of waiting followed by hours of chaos. Satellites that watch from above show rivers of moisture drifting into new latitudes, carrying life, or loss, to unfamiliar places. Some lands are drowning while others crack and crumble beneath sunburnt skies. The atmosphere seems to be rewriting the map of habitability itself. To farmers, these changes are not data points but destinies, dictating when to plant, when to harvest, when to hope. In every droplet, the story of adaptation unfolds. And as if to mirror this instability, lightning flashes more often across the warming world. The thunderstorm, a furnace of moisture and charge, is quickened by heat. Each degree of warming adds vigor to the convective dance of rising air, forming more powerful updrafts, higher clouds, and stronger electric fields. Satellites now detect billions of bolts each year, each one a sudden bridge between cloud and earth, a reminder that energy cannot stay silent. Lightning ignites wildfires, forges new nitrogen in the air, and sometimes strikes alone in vast plains where no human watches. As the planet warms, some scientists warn that this electric chorus may grow louder, a more charged, more sparking sky. In that possibility lies both beauty and peril, the heavens alive with light that touches ground more often than before. Hurricanes, too, are evolving under the planet's fever. The ocean is their cradle, and warmer seas mean richer nourishment. A storm that once might have spun itself out now draws deeper energy from the heat stored in tropical waters. Winds climb faster, rains fall heavier, and the spirals of clouds seen from orbit tighten with ferocious grace. Each hurricane is an engine of release, taking heat from the sea, lifting it skyward, and spinning it into motion. Scientists note a shift toward fewer but stronger storms, categories 4 and 5 appearing more often like titans waking from sleep. From the ground, their arrival is apocalyptic. Winds howl like jet engines, the ocean rises as if alive, and rain slashes sideways through air thick with salt. Yet even here, amid destruction, there is awe, the recognition of a power vast and impartial, shaped by physics but felt in the soul. To study such storms is to glimpse nature's restless equilibrium, always seeking balance yet never still. Across the world, the pendulum between flood and drought swings faster. Long stretches of thirst break suddenly into torrents that overwhelm riverbanks and fields. The same soil that cracks one season becomes a floodplain the next. The atmosphere, heavy with moisture, releases its weight unevenly, testing the resilience of land and life. Crops endure both drowning and drought in the same year, forcing farmers to learn new rhythms of survival. The contrast is startling, the sky holding back until it cannot, then giving everything at once. It is as if the atmosphere, overwhelmed by its own abundance, releases emotion in storms. Floods carve new channels into earth, droughts etch their memory in dust. Between them, humanity stands like a witness to a drama older than civilization itself. And high above, silent guardians orbit, the satellites that see it all. From their distant vantage, The Earth is a living mosaic of motion, clouds spiraling, storms blooming, deserts shimmering. They measure temperature, moisture, and wind, translating chaos into patterns, noise into knowledge. Every few moments they beam their findings home, allowing supercomputers to simulate the future, to glimpse the possibilities hidden in the swirling present. These machines hum in chilled rooms, their circuits glowing faintly like artificial stars, modeling hurricanes before they form, tracing the birth of lightning, predicting the wander of monsoons. They cannot feel the wind, but they understand its mathematics. They do not watch sunsets, but they can describe their physics. And through them, we learn to read the sky's language more fluently than ever before. Yet, for all our sensors and models, there remains a mystery that no machine can fully capture: the sensation of weather as it lives around us. The scent of rain before it falls, the shimmer of heat above a road, the silence after a snowfall. These are the intimate verses of the atmosphere's poem. Science can explain them, but experience gives them meaning. The same molecules that drive climate models also write the memories of summer and the chill of winter mornings. As the world changes, we stand between knowledge and feeling, between data and awe. We know why storms form, but still we look up when thunder rolls, compelled by something older than curiosity. The future of weather will be one of contrasts, more violent yet more understood, more unpredictable yet more closely watched. We will see floods rise and fires rage, but we will also see new ways to adapt, to forecast, to endure. The atmosphere, though restless, is not our enemy. It is our mirror, reflecting the energy we pour into the planet back at us in wind, rain, and light. To live on Earth is to live within that breath. Even as ice melts and storms grow fiercer, dawn will still come. The air will still move softly over oceans and fields. The same sun that fuels hurricanes will also paint the morning sky gold. And in that quiet after the storm, when the clouds part and light spills once more across the wet earth, we will remember that weather, in all its fury and tenderness, is the voice of a living world, speaking to us in wind and wave and silence alike. Giant computers hum like artificial minds, vast engines of thought running calculations billions of times each second. Into them flow the whispers of satellites and sensors, fragments of sunlight and shadow turned into numbers that describe the air itself. With this power, scientists feed in the pulse of the planet, surface temperatures, wind speeds, humidity, and pressure, to create digital worlds that mirror our own. Inside these electronic oceans, hurricanes spiral to life before they are born in reality, simulated storms whose paths and tempers can be traced long before the first wave begins to turn. Every model run is a rehearsal of the future, the atmosphere performing its possible moves on a stage of mathematics. It is not perfect, never can be, for weather is a language of chaos, but it is astonishingly powerful, giving us glimpses of what might come: a rainstorm, a drought, the breath of a coming heatwave. To realize that equations and silicon can foresee the moods of the sky is to recognize how science itself has learned to dream with the weather. Forecasts today are more accurate than any in history. Not long ago, people read the heavens like a face, guessing at its expression. Farmers watched the color of dawn, sailors studied the glow of sunset, and townsfolk trusted the ache in their bones or the tilt of the wind. But now, our partnership with the sky is written in data. We can watch storms cross entire oceans, trace the movement of rain to the hour, even send warnings minutes before a tornado descends. What once seemed magic is now method, born of physics and persistence. Though we still sigh when a picnic is spoiled by rain, it is worth remembering how miraculous it is to know the whims of the atmosphere days ahead. Forecasts are our quiet conversation with the planet, imperfect, yes, but more eloquent than ever before. And yet, even as satellites circle and computers hum, weather keeps its mysteries. The sky remains a master of surprise. The atmosphere is a living chaos, exquisitely sensitive to the smallest nudge. A single breath of warm sea air, a spark of sunlight on a distant cloud, a shift in pressure invisible to human sense, any of these can alter the story of storms. This is the butterfly effect, the poetic truth that even the smallest flutter can change the course of the world. Beyond a week or two, forecasts fade into uncertainty. The sky writes its own script, erasing and rewriting with every gust. But this unpredictability is not failure, it is wonder. To know that the world still holds secrets beyond our grasp is a comfort. It reminds us that nature has not surrendered all its mysteries to machines. The air itself still hums with possibility. Animals, too, are ancient readers of this living script. Long before meteorology, the wild had its own forecasters. Birds rise or flee before storms arrive, sensing the subtle pressure of a changing sky. Horses and cattle grow uneasy when the air grows heavy. Dogs slink to corners as thunder approaches. Even the bees, those tireless architects of sunlight, hurry home before rain, while ants seal their tunnels tight. Scientists have found that many creatures detect shifts in barometric pressure or the deep vibrations of thunder beyond our hearing. In another age, farmers watched their herds and flocks for signs of what the heavens prepared. Today, as satellites measure the atmosphere from space, animals remain the oldest instruments of prediction, instinctive, delicate, alive to every whisper. Their awareness reminds us that the story of weather is not only written in machines but in the beating hearts of life itself. Even our own bodies listen to the sky. Many people feel it before the rain, the dull ache in the knees or the tightness in old scars. As barometric pressure falls ahead of storms, the tissues in our joints subtly shift, pressing on nerves already tender from time or strain. Doctors know it well. A storm can make a patient's bones ache like a tuning fork struck by invisible air. The same changes that move clouds and wind also ripple through flesh and blood. When the atmosphere grows restless, our bodies remember first. We, too, are part of the weather. And yet, not all weather is fury. There are moments when the air itself seems to sigh, when clouds drift like forgotten thoughts. Weather, after all, is not merely violence. It is the rhythm of existence, the heartbeat of the planet. Beneath the vast blue dome, air is forever moving, trading warmth for cold, moisture for dryness, rest for motion. Every breath of wind, every shimmer of sunlight, every drop of rain is part of an endless cycle, a choreography of matter and energy that sustains life. To watch a cloud form is to witness the breath of the world. Moist air rises, cools, and condenses, tiny droplets gathering like thoughts taking shape. When those droplets grow heavy enough, they fall, and we call it rain. The water that splashes against your window tonight may once have floated over mountains or lain silent in a glacier. Through the ages, it has fallen and risen again, the eternal traveler that binds sea, sky, and soil. Sometimes that rain freezes into intricate crystals, tiny architectures of ice that drift gently down as snow. Each flake is a map of its own history, how it cooled, how it met the air, how it turned as it fell. No two are ever quite the same. In their millions, they blanket the world in silence, turning even the loudest cities into dreamscapes. And in spring, when the sun returns, that same water melts, feeds rivers, awakens seeds, and begins the cycle anew. Other times, water vapor lingers near the ground as fog, softening edges and swallowing sound. Fog is the sky brought close, clouds that have descended to walk among us. To stand in fog is to stand inside the atmosphere itself, wrapped in its breath. At dawn, the world feels reborn in that haze, as if the earth has paused to think between night and day. Sometimes, if the angle of light is right, a rainbow forms, a perfect spectrum drawn by the hand of sunlight through raindrops. And even rarer, when the fog is too fine to form true droplets, a pale ghost of a rainbow appears, the fogbow, a ring of white light so faint it seems imagined. It is a quiet miracle, the colorless twin of the rainbow, seen only by those who linger long enough to notice. Then there are mirages, tricks of light and heat that paint false lakes on desert roads or turn distant ships upside down. They are not illusions of the mind but creations of physics, where layers of hot and cool air bend light like glass. The earth, it seems, is full of little deceptions, born not from magic but from the way light and air conspire to play. And above all this, lightning reigns, one of nature's most dramatic signatures. A single bolt can heat the air to temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun, creating a shockwave that becomes thunder. But even higher above, far beyond the reach of storms, there are stranger lights, sprites, elves, and blue jets, ephemeral flashes in the upper atmosphere, luminous blossoms that flicker and fade in silence. They are reminders that even the most familiar storm hides secrets that glow unseen in the thin air above. Weather is also silence, the peace after the storm, the first stillness of dawn. As night lifts, a faint silver glow spreads across the sky. The air feels newly made, washed clean by its own breath. Birds stir, mist curls from lakes, dew clings to blades of grass like 1,000 tiny stars. This is the calmest face of weather, when the world itself seems to hold its breath. The same air that roared with thunder a day ago now drifts like a whisper. There is beauty in both, the storm's roar and the dawn's hush, each necessary, each part of the same grand pulse. Yet extremes remind us of the planet's power. Heat waves shimmer over cities, bending light until the horizon dances. In such heat, roads soften, rivers shrink, and life slows to endure. Elsewhere, cold reigns, temperatures plunge so low that metal bites the skin and even breath crystallizes. In Siberia and Antarctica, thermometers sink beyond imagination, and yet life still endures. Bacteria in the ice, penguins guarding eggs against the wind, foxes curling into snowdrifts. The world adapts. Always it endures. Hurricanes spin like living beings, drawing their strength from the warmth of the sea. Their eyes are calm, their edges furious. From space, they are breathtaking, vast spirals of cloud turning with slow grace, beautiful and terrifying all at once. Within them, the power of countless storms gathers into one immense will. They reshape coastlines, carve rivers, and remind us that we are small beneath the sky. Yet, even in their destruction, they are part of the planet's balance, redistributing heat and moisture across the globe. And so the weather continues, ever-changing, never-ending. The same forces that shape hurricanes also sculpt clouds over quiet fields, frost on a window, or the gleam of a rainbow after rain. Weather is the artist of the earth, painting and erasing endlessly. It connects us all. The breath of wind on your face tonight is part of the same current that once swept over mountains, deserts, and seas. As evening deepens and you close your eyes, imagine the atmosphere circling above, a vast, invisible ocean in motion. Within it swirl the seeds of tomorrow's storms and the calm of tomorrow's dawn. Even now, as you rest, the air is alive, dreaming of what it will become. Weather is not just what happens to us, it is what the earth is always becoming. It is energy made visible, the planet's endless conversation with itself. So let yourself drift with it. Feel the slow rhythm of the wind through the leaves, the hush after rain, the quiet glow of moonlight through thin clouds. These are the lullabies of the world, sung in air and water. After every storm comes calm, after every night light. The same skies that watch the birth of mountains still watch over you tonight, steady, timeless, and full of wonder. The atmosphere never truly sleeps, but perhaps it can help you do so, wrapped in its gentle breath, listening to the heartbeat of a living world. Good night. Crescent Moon.